Good morning, good day, good evening. It's kind of hard with the internet these days to know when people and where people are. So welcome to ScaleUP. This is Logz.io's first virtual user conference. So welcome. I'm Mike Elsmore. I'm the developer advocate here, and I will be your moderator for today. So that means all those little notifications you're going to be getting. Hi. So let's get on with the logistics and seeing what's going on today. So today is going to be 3 hours long. It's going to be 8 sessions and some little bits sprinkled around. And the entire live portion of this event is going to be happening in the chat. So please be nice and follow our COC. We also are going to have some contests running down there. So, keep an eye, be quick, and see what you can get. And you know what? It means we can get straight on and start our day. So first up is our CEO and co-founder, Tomer Levy. He is going to be talking about Logz.io, our open source implementations and the best of breed that they are. It's going to be talking a bit about the strategy and around observability and the platform that we're creating. It's going to comment on some customers, and you never know, you may get a little bit of exciting news about what's coming up. So without further ado, let the man, the legend, start talking. After you, Tomer.
Thank you very much, Mike. It's absolutely awesome to be here today. My name is Tomer. I'm the CEO of Logz.io, and I'm extremely excited to open up ScaleUp 2020. Thank you, everyone who are participating today. I know you have too many Zoom calls and too many virtual events, and I so much appreciate you taking the time to join us for a couple of hours today. We have prepared a couple of really awesome sessions. Some of our customers are going to speak about their journey, about their vision for observability, the challenge they've been seeing, and how they're thinking about the future. Before we get started, I want to thank the customers who spend time preparing for this day, thinking about how they're going to share their vision. Dish Networks, Kaltura, Pivotry, OneSpan, The Economist, Chrome River, and Mediatonic. I couldn't be more thankful for you guys taking the time. I also want to thank our partners who support us on a day-to-day and support us today. Please take a minute to look at their slot on the event application and learn more about what they're doing. Thank you so much for supporting Logz.io. Last but absolutely not least, I want to thank the Logz.io team who have been working for months over months preparing for this day. We've prepared new products, we've prepared new features. Extremely excited to share the fruit of so much work, of so much innovation. Thank you so much to the Logz.io team for enabling me to sit here today and share some of these announcements with you. So I'm Tomer, as I said, a very, very proud member of the Logz.io team and one of the founders of the company. I'm a developer by training. You can find me on Twitter at Tomer Levy. I have 3 kids and I love kite surfing and everything around the ocean. When Asaf and I founded Logz.io, we believe that engineers want to use open source for monitoring, for logging, and we believe that there is no easy way to achieve that. As we launched the company, we focused on the ELK stack, and we wanted to enable every engineer out there to be able to use ELK at scale in the cloud, so it's intelligent and it's something you can run your production on. As the company matured, so was our vision, right? It moved from focused on ELK to extending it to various other open sources. So we basically extended this mission of enabling engineers to use open source for observability to more than ELK, to more than just logging, into metrics, into tracing, into security, and really with a wider vision to bring one platform to the world. And that platform is going to be different than what companies have today. That platform is going to be the kind of platform that engineers actually want to use because we deeply believe that given choice, engineers would love to use open source for whatever they can do in observability, but not all. So with that in mind, we started Logz.io early 2015. This was our first office in Tel Aviv, basically 2-3 people in one room. And one of the first things we've done was to work with the community, to work with people who care about open source, who wanted to build open source observability. This was taken early 2015 in Cambridge, Massachusetts. And ever since, we've been working so closely with customers because in the end of the day, this is the most important value of the company. We wanted to build a company of individuals that obsess over customers. And if I could choose only one manifestation of customer obsession, I would go with support. Support is what, the closest touch with customers. And if any of you experience the Logz.io support, it is like nothing else. Just go to G2 Crowd and learn more about the Logz.io support and why we want the best support in our class. With our value, it's in order to achieve our mission, we had to put values to define how we're going to act. And acting with courage means that we're not going to focus on one tool and do the best tool we can. We're going to look and see how we can solve a significant problems for users. And today, I think we all agreed that big problem is how do you build the platform, end-to-end platform for developers that takes running and monitoring a cloud application, end-to-end. And I think we've taken this big vision upon our shoulders, and I couldn't be more excited about today and all the new enhancements we're going to share. With all the big visions we have, with all the important values, without the team, we would have nothing. So we started with a small team in the beginning of 2015 and grew right to about 200 people when COVID was about to hit in the beginning of 2020. So this is an exciting and touching moment in the company's history, seeing all of us together without masks, and definitely a time I miss dearly. Without a team, we can achieve very little. So we strongly believe that we win as a team. And when I think about teams, I don't think only about the Logz.io team. I think we have a practice of partnering with customers, not just selling to customers. Especially when some today, which were literally built with customers together, because if we take care of our customers, if we form a team with them on how we're going to bring solutions to their problems, the score will take care of itself. In the end of the day, we have to deliver results, and we promise and commit to deliver results for our customers. And it all starts and ends with how do we make them successful. And I think the growth of the company over the last years have been a strong evidence of us actually solving significant customer problems. And again, winning the momentum leader in our space at the G2 Crowd platform. Last, but absolutely not least, we want to become our best. Our engineering team wants to become the best engineering team they can, our product teams and go-to-market teams. I personally want to become the best I can. And therefore, the way to achieve that is through curiosity and humility. So I'm open to feedback. If you have anything you want to say to Logz.io, you can send us over email through your support, account management, and I'm here on Twitter. I would welcome any feedback you have for the company. Think we could do better. Think we're doing well. Would love everyone's contribution. So a quick view at Logz.io. 6 years old company, offices in Tel Aviv, Israel, Boston, Massachusetts, London, UK, and an office in Kiev. We have data centers all over the world, the East Coast of the US, the West Coast, London, 2 in the rest of Europe, and some in Asia Pacific. We run on 2 clouds, on Amazon and on Azure. We have today more than 800 paying customers, and we have a big appreciation to how customers are helping us really develop features and develop who we are today. Stay tuned. Right after my session and a couple of others, we'll have the Fall Guys session today. If you're familiar with this Fall Guy game, this is the #1 game in 2020. The company behind Fall Guys, Mediatonic, had an epic launch in 2020, going from 0 to probably the most played games in 2020. They're going to have an awesome session around observability, how you scale from 0 to where they are today, how you think about logs and metrics together, and how you think about open source. So stay tuned for the Mediatonic and Fall Guys session. That's an awesome one. So I want to walk you through just a little bit of the fundamentals of how we see the world. So we talked about our mission and what we're here to do on this planet. And we talked about engineers build cloud applications, how they think about, hey, I have to build this ticketing application, payment applications, travel applications. They'll probably use open source. They use open source for queuing, as a database, as a library to develop capabilities. And when they do that, more often than not, they use open source observability. For example, they'll use ELK, maybe they'll use Prometheus connected into their Kubernetes. Maybe they use Grafana. More and more companies choose to use open telemetry. So this is how software engineers, given choice, build software today. So I'm talking about observability. I want to make sure we're all on the same page to what that means. Observability means that we're going to look at signals coming from software. So it's not just the textual signals, which are the logs, and not just the numerical values coming from system metrics. It's also the traces. It's all of these signals coming together and how we correlate them: logs, metrics, and traces. Another big motion we've been seeing over the last couple of years is the move from DevOps to DevSecOps. So if I could ask you one question today and you would be able to answer, I would ask you, hey, how many of you actually own security? How many of you actually have more security responsibility within the DevOps environment? I would probably guess that most of you will raise their hand. We've seen that probably 5 years ago. Our customers have been asking for it probably 5 years ago. And we've realized that if we want to build a platform for DevOps, we have to build one platform for observability, and that platform has to have security integrated into it. And we're going to show some of that today. So this market is very flooded, if you will, with other solutions. Splunk and Datadog have been around for many years, well before Logz.io was founded, and they have a lot of customers using them. 40,000 companies use them. This is per beginning of 2020. Sorry. When you think about what do the rest of the companies in the world do, they actually use open source. So if you look at this number, there are more than 500,000 companies today using open source for observability. This is just a phenomenal number. So actually, most of the companies in the world, most of the software engineers and DevOps engineers and SREs around the world, they use open source for observability. And that's kind of why, in a way, why we chose that mission, because we can help all these companies keep on using open source without all the challenges around that. And without further ado, I'd love to introduce the Logz.io platform to you. So in the center of the Logz.io platform is our log analytics solution. It's a cloud service built on the very famous ELK stack. So customers get the same experience, the same Kibana as they're used to getting in their self-managed environment, but now it runs in the cloud. It's fully scalable, it's highly available, it's going to run 10 times faster than your own local ELK. It's going to have more and more capabilities which are not part of the open source, like role-based access, like sub-accounts, like machine learning and AI, that you can see some of these capabilities here to automatically correlate and predict if you're going to experience a production issue or what is the problem causing or which may cause a production issue. And then we take all of that and we run it as a service in the cloud in a way which is significantly more cost efficient than what you're able to run locally. The second part of our platform, which we released earlier this year, is the Logz.io infrastructure monitoring. This is the time series analytics with the open source Grafana as the front end, with the list of dashboards that automatically parse and visualize metrics data into logs. So if you're now troubleshooting something on your Kubernetes, you're seeing a spike, you press one button, you go into the logs of the same pod, of the same app, of the same issue, and you go in the right time frame. So correlating these back to back is becoming significantly easier with the Logz.io infrastructure monitoring and the Logz.io logging. So I also have some great news today. We're still not releasing it. We will announce it more formally at reInvent today, coming later this month, but we are going to announce Prometheus as a service coming to Logz.io. That's extremely exciting because our metrics solution will be also based on the same infrastructure, time series analytics infrastructure as Prometheus. So supporting the same dashboard, the migration becoming extremely easy. And it's a huge ask from our customer that we're so excited to share that it's coming very soon. We are announcing something extremely exciting today, and that is the Logz.io distributed tracing. I'm extremely excited about this capability. We've taken the most common open source for tracing called Jaeger, and we're offering Jaeger as a service in the cloud. So as you can see here, you have the Kibana, you have the metrics, and you have Jaeger. So all you have to do is point the data at Logz.io, and you will get all your traces in here. You will get the ability to go from traces into the logs and backwards. You will have the ability to look at the system architecture. Integration is extremely simple. If you think about it, you don't have Jaeger today, you're thinking about integrating it. Super simple with the Open Telemetry project, the open source project. We're also big supporters of that project and big believers. This is an extremely exciting product. We've been working on that capability for a long time. We've been contributing more and more of the capabilities that we're developing into the Jaeger repository. So some of these capabilities you'll be able to enjoy in your own self-managed. Some of them will be providing them through the cloud service. This is, we'll share more details during a SAFs presentation, which will come after mine. Last but absolutely not least is Logz.io Cloud SIEM. The Cloud SIEM has been around for about 2 years, a little more than that. We've seen tremendous adoption, significantly more than we expected for the Cloud SIEM, which basically provides a full-blown SIEM in the cloud, running on top of Kibana, enabling engineers, security engineers, to use open source to run security. We integrate the logs with threat feeds, so we enrich the data with either the feeds we provide, our customers provide. We have a long list of rules that detect vulnerabilities and detect threats in the environment, mostly focused on AWS, on Azure environments, on microservices, and highlighting critical events and risks in the environment, enabling you to quickly drill down, find if this is a real attack or if this is a false alarm. So if we kind of zoom out and go from our mission to the platform we have today, so we started really with monitoring, focus on the logs. We've added security with the Cloud SIEM. We've taken the open source Grafana and integrated into Logz.io. We're now announcing Jaeger, and as I've mentioned, we're going to announce Prometheus as a service at reInvent 2020. This platform is now coming together with Open Telemetry to be the only platform in the world which takes the best open sources for observability and bring them into one place as a very powerful, highly integrated platform. So basically sending any data you have today into the Logz.io unified data store, so you can correlate it, you can enrich it with more data, you can extract insights from it, apply AI and machine learning to find what's important in the data, find important correlation, and bring it all together in the right interface for the right use case, from Kibana to Grafana, the open source Grafana, to Jaeger for distributed tracing. Before I wrap up today's session, one of the most common asked by customers is how do we help them reduce their spend? And in 2020, we released about 4 very innovative capabilities to help customers reduce their spend, from the Logz.io patterns to volume analysis to flexible sub-accounts to drop filters. Today we have another announcement, and it's based on the understanding that not all logs are born the same. Today I'm extremely excited to announce Logz.io Smart Tiering. So the Logz.io Smart Tiering enables you not just to ingest data into this real-time hot tier, which has the best performance and best availability. This is something we have and all vendors have. Today we're announcing the Logz.io Smart Tier. The Smart Tier actually has the same level of performance as the real-time tier. But what it does, it provides a trade-off of availability and cost. So I'll give you an example. Let's say you want to keep your data for 30 days. For the first week, you want to troubleshoot production issues. You want your engineer to be able to jump and make sure the data is always at the best performance and the best availability. After 7 days, you'll use it for trend analysis, you'll use it for support, you'll use it for other topics like analytics, which are not as time sensitive. So if that's the case, you can move the data from the real-time tier into the smart tier. What happened in the smart tier, you can still run your dashboard, run the search, everything will work just the same. You will not even be aware that this is a different tier. However, the cost is significantly lower on that tier, and the availability is a little bit lower. So it means that once in a while, when you search for the data, when support has a ticket and they search for the data, it will not be available. It will let you know that the data will be back in a couple of minutes. In exchange to this reduction of availability, you're getting a significantly reduced price point. Another tier we have is the historical tier, basically enabling you to ingest the data and send it directly into the historical tier using the Logz.io drop filters. So you don't even have to pay for the most expensive ingestion and the most expensive storage tier. So within 3 tiers, you really have the ability to think about your data in different ways, think about which log data should be in each tier, and you can always move the tiers up. So let's say you have data which is 6 months old, you want to recover. It's a single click, 2 clicks in the UI, you restore the data, it goes back into real time, and you can enjoy it in a way and search for it or run dashboard with it. Stay tuned. We have, as I mentioned, really amazing speakers today. We could be more excited for what's coming, and additional announcements we'll have later today. Thank you everyone for joining today. Thank you everyone for listening to the session. I'm going to be here, and I'll hope to see you soon. Thank you so much.
And thank you, Tamer. It's really great to have seen where we're all going now. So next up, we have Roy Marcus, and he is the technical director at Mediatonic. Now, if you've never heard of them, that's fine. But if you have, it'll be for one specific title. They're a video game studio, and they've recently released Fall Guys Ultimate Knockout. And in this session, it's something that, a bit of pain that I felt, and this is going to be amazing. How they went and took his team and essentially built something in a really quick time for something that's hugely popular. Like, me as an engineer, never seen that before. So let's see how we actually went and did it. After you, Rory.
Hey everyone, welcome to ScaleUP 2020 conference. I'd like to thank Tamer for his opening remarks there, and I'm joining you now from London in England with a cat and a couple of other cats that you might see around, so apologies for that. I'd just like to thank Tomer and Logz.io for inviting me to talk at this conference. It's a privilege to be able to share my journey with metrics and launching a massively multiplayer online game. So with that, I'll get started. So I'm going to cover a few topics. Mostly I'm just going to touch on what we did with the game and what we did with metrics, but I'll start by explaining what the game was for anyone who hasn't come across or heard of Fall Guys. I'm going to start with where we started, what we wanted to do, a hero solution we were looking for, a central source of truth that we found it to be, the evolution of a dashboard that eventually all led and compiled down into what was a great launch for us. So just a brief intro to me. Hi, my name is Rory Marquis. I'm technical director at Mediatonic. We're a games company, been around for about 15 years. We've released hundreds of games titles really, but actually by far the most successful and biggest has been Fall Guys. Now, for anybody who doesn't know Fall Guys or hasn't heard of Fall Guys or hasn't got a teenage relative they can ask, Fall Guys Ultimate Knockout is a battle royale. It's 60 players go in and play a competition over a series of rounds to win a crown. Very reminiscent of sort of Saturday game shows and slapstick chaos. And so the game was very much revolved around that physics-driven slapstick chaos. We released it on PC and PlayStation on August this year, and by the 26th of August, we were already the #1 downloaded PlayStation Plus game of all time. So it's pretty impressive, and we were really surprised and really happy with it. But the question that I would like to ask myself, I guess, because I can't ask you because of remote lockdownness, is how do you launch one of the biggest games in the world from lockdown? So the answer should be surprisingly easy considering the conference we're at. It's data. It's all about data. It's having exact, precise data that you can look at, that you can understand, that you can really get a feel for what's going on and deal with any situation that comes up. A better answer is probably data visualization. So that's the most important part. Is if you've got data, if you've got raw data, being able to visualize it is something completely different in a way that it puts it in a format that everybody can see, everybody can understand, and everybody can follow, and you can share without having to explain it. It's not in a spreadsheet, it's also not boring, and it generally changes the perception of the data. Now, this being a better answer, this is an example with example data of the Fall Guys launch dashboard that we used during the launch of the game. And this was all built with Logz.io and Grafana. But I'm going to come back to this a bit later because this is where we ended and you don't start at the end. So I'd like to take you now on a journey through time and space back to April 2020 of this year. We're in a world that had unfortunately locked down, but we as a games company were also in a world of logging. We had a lot of log files and a lot of server and a lot of data. And as we've already covered, the best thing to do with a lot of data is to visualize it. So the first visualization of Fall Guys looked a bit like this. So these are the server stats that we got from the logs, from the logging that we have. So they were applied to one server. We could go and look at the server, see how it was performing. And we had active data that we could analyze and check in on. So it was a useful evolution between just the data and the visualization of it. But I'm sure everybody who's watching this and everybody who's been involved or not, or if you haven't, you'll soon know that once you have something, once you've got a visualization of data or just any data, the evolution is always people want more. So this very quickly expanded into a much bigger dashboard. But again, it was still only on one server, but it was very easy to view, but it wasn't very centralized. We were still passing basically the raw logs to display this. And we knew for our beta test, we needed more. We needed an aggregate centralized place in which we could understand how the game as a totality with all the players that were playing was being done. So for the beta playtests, we needed something that was aggregated. We pulled all of the logs down and we passed them basically with a Python script. So we sort of centralized our data by, after the playtest, downloading all of the log files from all the servers we were played on, and we were able to get some basic sort of KPI data out of it. But as we've already covered, that once you've got something, people always want to see more. So very quickly, this evolved into much more information, much more data. And although this is data, it's still a visualization of data. A text and a report can still be a way of visualizing data. It's not always necessarily the best, but it's a way that puts in a format that people can quickly break down and understand. And this might be fine for early development. This might be fine for testing, but we know we needed more. So now it's June 2020. And we're still in lockdown, unfortunately, and we had our logs, but we really needed the evolution of what we've seen to go forward. We're about 2 months away from release, so we knew we needed to start ramping up this side of the analytics. Now, having worked on some live games before, I've seen a lot of stats. I've seen a lot of ways of collecting them. I've seen a lot of ways of presenting them. I've seen things from entirely bespoke pipelines to fully Apache-based pipelines. But by far my best experience was with the ELK stack. I'm also well aware that other games companies have used it very successfully for their launches, and it's generally a good, solid platform with which to work from. So after some due diligence to confirm my experience and my understanding, I presented this back to the games, but to the people making the game, to us, basically. I presented it to ourselves, and the general response was, cool, we should do that. So we went around and we did some research and we looked at what was out there. Now, what we really wanted is some kind of hero solution that kind of just did it all for us. The barest minimum we were looking for was sort of Kibana and the Elasticsearch stack. And there are a couple of things that offer it. But after doing some research, evaluating with my peers, one thing kept rising to the top. And more than once, it was mentioned, you should try Logz.io. So with that in mind, I reached out to Logz.io and see if we could set up like a call to go through our requirements. So to see if Logz.io was the hero solution that we needed, I drew up a list of basic requirements. We had a Zoom call with them. We needed them to know that we were going to launch in August, so it wasn't super far away. We must have centralized data for this. We needed to have that single source. We know we wanted to use something like the ELK stack. We trusted it, we were aware of it, and we know it's a good platform. We want to be able to have a good prediction of cost, so we needed a service that could help us estimate within a good margin what this was probably going to cost us for release, because basically we don't know how successful something's going to be, so we need to be able to scale that out. Speaking of scaling, we had limited engineering time, so we didn't want to build something ourselves, and we had enough to scale out with the backend services and our own BI and our own game servers to run without having to take on something else. And we needed this hero solution. So with that, we had a call with Logz.io. They said they could address all of these things, which was great for us. And so we started a trial, which is the sensible next step. So first of all, I started with no data, and I was just putting in a little bit of test code to work it out, and I couldn't quite work out what I was missing in this puzzle. I wondered if our games engine complex use case was too complex. So I opened the little support chat on Logz.io, which is actually pretty cool, and it pops up, and I had a chat with somebody about like what maybe I was missing. So very quickly, they were able to identify the couple of steps that I'd missed along the way. And within 10 minutes more of coding, I was able to trail all of the data coming in. You can see a slightly screen cap of it on the left there. If that's good enough definition, I don't know. But basically, this was all of the logs just streaming live and all of the metrics that I'd set up streaming live. It was pretty simple to do, and it literally took about 10 minutes to get that basic minimal viable connection product in. At this point, I realized I was in the matrix, and although this is very cool and a great visualization, sometimes I realize that non-data nerds like me have to look at it too. So going back to the previous slides that we discussed, we had the data. Now what we really needed is a visualization of it, because actually all of the data streaming in was really only giving us one piece of information, and that was how many players were connected to the game. So with this in mind, I dialed it back and I made a very simple aggregate that would show us the visualization. And this was the first metric for Fall Guys. It was just me playing on my own on my MacBook. It was just one player, one machine, but we didn't build the game for one player and one machine. We built it for thousands of players. So I proved my use case and I needed to get going. But knowing that it was thousands of players, the next thing I had to do was discuss the cost estimate. How much was this going to cost me? Because as mentioned before, that was a vital ingredient that we needed to cover. So I went back to Logz.io and had a chat with a couple of great guys called Eric and Joseph and others, not to miss anyone out. But we needed to talk about what was going on. And I said, this is great. We've got centralized logs. We've got real-time metrics, got the alerting we want, but really need to know what's this going to cost. I was aware that there was I was aware there was prices on the website. Sorry. I was aware there was prices on the website. And I went and I preempted this call with my own dollar estimate. I presented this back to them. And actually the response I got was, it'd probably be a little bit less than my estimate. I didn't quite understand how it could possibly be less than the figure you put on your website, but they started to explain to me how there were simple things that they could do to help address the cost, such as dropping logs. So the ability to drop a log meant that they could ingest it, they would parse it, they would put it through their system, but actually if we didn't want it, they would drop it for us. And this in the long run would help us achieve the cost that we wanted to, and actually retain the most important data we wanted to. And it should be really easy, as it's actually on the dashboard as a little toggle you can switch on and off when you want those logs or when you don't want those logs. This as well felt very powerful, the fact that they would help us lower the cost if we needed to. They would help us build out the dashboards. They would manage all the service for us and give us all this sort of great support. So at this point, it was very much a no-brainer for us to use Logz.io for the Fall Guys launch. It fit everything we needed and more that we hadn't expected, and they were able to make it economically worthy for us. So we went ahead and started to full integration. So by the time July rolled around, we're about 1 month from release. We're fully in lockdown still, and we're fully in Logz.io. You may remember from earlier slides about 10 minutes ago that I showed you what our server stats looked like. And this was just one server, and we would present them and parse them with Python. But now, fully powered by Logz.io, our server stats look like this. It's not a million miles away from what it was, but because we started with the same data, we'd already collected it. What was great about this is hooking up was very easy because we already had the data, we just passed it through. I should have mentioned on the previous slide as well that dropping logs was so easy that I didn't need to change anything on the client side either. It was just the same initial code that I'd written to pass the data through was still being used. They just did all the work on their side, which is just amazingly beneficial. So this dashboard is of one server. It's powered by Logz.io. It starts with the same data, and we evolved it to add more. But the benefits of it is now time serialized, it's centralized and persisted, which means that anybody can view it at any time. We can go back and look at it in the past, a week ago, a month ago, and just compare performance between now and then. And this, at this point, is when we found an unexpected benefit from using Logz.io that we never even predicted we came to. So we knew that we wanted to use Logz.io, and it was going to be the central source of truth for all the live state of the game. We knew it was going to have all the data centralized. It's logging, metrics, and alerts were all hooked up into Slack, and we discovered this unexpected use case. So during one of the beta playtests, we got an alert in Slack. Now, this was pretty cool because it pops through, it tells you what the alert specifically was about, because you've set it up to do that. So it's good that it actually tells you the thing you wanted to know. But it also comes with a link to Grafana. This link actually opens directly into Logz.io, and you're able to look through the graphs that you'd set up in order to analyze the problem. In our case, we were looking at a hitch summary for the server. We tracked it down, and we saw that the game was indeed hitching. We were able to filter that view down to just the major hitches and see which particular server was the problem. At that point, we've gone from a very high level, just nugget of information, down to identifying exactly which server it is, literally in a matter of seconds. From here, we can get the overview of the server, which is basically what I was showing you before, and we were able to see what exactly happened, how long it lasted, how quickly it recovered, how many players were playing at the right time. But this key thing that we never expected was the ability to be able to click directly to show the logs. With this thing that you can put into Grafana and Logz.io, it will open up Kibana at the exact point the exact query information you need to use, in our case, to look at the server. We could see that time period, what was happening, what the server logs were. In our case, in this particular case, there was an error that was causing it. We were also able to then take that information, extrapolate it out, and look at all of the servers across the whole playtest. This is something we'd never been able to do before unless we downloaded all the logs and passed them through a Python script. So having this all in one place, and this was all set up, and it was literally 20-30 seconds between beginning to end to be able to track this down and spot exactly where it was just amazingly powerful for us. It was hugely beneficial, hugely unexpected. The power of that centralized data was so useful to us. And at this point, we knew we'd chosen the right choice, and we knew we'd chosen the right choice. We knew we had the right choice. We made the right choice. And we knew that we could definitely do more. But we also knew we didn't want a view of just one server. We needed a view of the world. So we started to go back to basics. We started to create the dashboard that I showed you at the beginning. And it started with the simple, can we see the number of players online? Now we have all of that data for all of those servers. It was very easy to aggregate it into Grafana and view it. The next thing we needed to know was asked of us as soon as we had that was actually, can we break that down a little bit further by platform so we can see how many players are on each platform? It was very quickly after that, maybe even the same conversation where it was asked, can we see this in a graph over time, at least the last hour? And as soon as we had that in place, it was actually, can you show all of that information, but broken down again per region so we can get a complete worldwide view in one setting? And before you know it, as we've said before, as soon as you've got something, everybody wants more. So the discussion was actually, do you know what would be great? How many servers, how many players on each platform in one place at one time that we can display in the studio, have it really easy to copy and paste into Slack and refresh every 30 seconds. And this is how the dashboard you see here came into existence. So now it's August 2020, and we're about to launch the game backed by Logz.io, and we know we're in a good place to analyze all the data as it comes through and evaluate how well the game is performing. The launch of the game was incredibly successful, way beyond anything that we'd ever thought of. And being in lockdown meant that we had to do a lot of this over Discord, and Logz.io was integral to us for this because we were able to all have the same view of the same state of the game that was going on. We also learned that launch numbers are really fun to watch when that's all you've got to focus on. It allowed us to evaluate the state of what was going on, where in the world it was picking up, which launch regions had kicked off when we expected them to, and how it was being played. The game was super popular to a point where I can't give you exact numbers, but I can tell you that at one point over 700,000 concurrent viewers were on Twitch, and we had enough players that we noticed some really strange things, like we could tell when the Champions League football was on because we had an uptick in halftime, and we could tell when Fortnite briefly went offline because we had an uptick at that point. It was really amazing to see all these things and evaluate it. So in summary, we started by parsing logs with Python scripts. We had some basic data and we visualized it to look at the KPIs. We knew we need to centralize this data, and we knew a good way of doing that. We found Logz.io and they were more than happy to help. We built some awesome dashboards to view those awesome metrics and all that data. And we discovered a really efficient way of improving development during being able to track down and looking at that globalized view of all the state. And fundamentally, we launched a successful game, and we're really glad we had Logz.io in our back corner in order to review all that data. So I'd just like to say thank you for your time today. I hope this has been useful to you. Some of you may be at the beginning of your journey, some of you may be on the end, some of you may be in between, I don't know. But I hope that at least you can take forward and integrate your metrics and integrate with Logz.io in the way that will be useful to you, and you have a similar good and fun experience as well. Launching game in isolation without being with the team was hard enough, but having the data like that somehow made it feel more real and more alive, and we were able to just see things that we never thought we could do. Visualizing it was amazing. Everybody could analyze it, from executives to publishers. It was really useful to us. We really had like a great setup. So thanks very much for your time, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the conference. Bye.
Thank you very much, Rory. That was awesome. I'm not going to lie, I actually found your slides hilarious. So just as this quick intermission, we have our first contest. Now, everybody's going to need to go straight to the chat to put this answer in. and it's a quick question. So in Rory's presentation, what does Rory say was the first tool he used for logging? Fastest question. Got 1 second. Let's go. So whilst you're quickly doing that, I'm going to just introduce our next session. Our next session is actually between my boss, the El Jefe, Jonah Cowell, the CTO of Logz.io, and Nancy Goering, who happens to be a senior analyst at 451 Research, where she's the specialist in DevOps, cloud native monitoring, all the things internet that make lucky things work. So they're going to be giving a quick conversation on the trending topics in the open source observability space and all the things around it. So it's going to be quite informative. Let's go over to them and watch.
Hey everyone, thanks for joining me. My name's Jonah Cowell. I'm the CTO here at Logz.io, and I'm joined by Nancy from 451 Research. Nancy, can you say hi to everyone?
Hey, hi everyone. Thanks for having me. Yeah, I'm Nancy Goring from 451 Research, and I follow application and infrastructure performance, so all things monitoring.
Awesome. Thanks for joining us. I've had the pleasure of working with Nancy for many years and always respect her research commentary and her following of what's happening in our really interesting industry here. And we just thought that we would have a little conversation and share with you all about Nancy's research and where she sees things going within the community around observability and monitoring. There's obviously been a lot of changes, especially in the area of open source. And I just wanted to ask Nancy for her opinion specifically on some of the interesting things that she sees happening within open source and how it's changing observability.
Yeah, so I mean, it's interesting. Open source has, had a pretty strong presence in monitoring for a really long time, but it's definitely having a bit of a renaissance, right? So we've seen a growing interest in a number of open source projects and a lot of enthusiasm around them, which I think is helping drive them in the right direction, right? To continue to meet the kinds of demands that organizations have from their monitoring tools right now, particularly as a lot of organizations are really shifting their technology adoption internally, right? So there is a demand for new types of tools if you're embracing cloud native types of technologies versus more traditional application and infrastructure stacks, right? And we're definitely seeing open source playing a really strong role in catering to these new demands.
Yeah, so it's always kind of been there. I mean, you can rewind 15, 20 years ago with Nagios and how popular it has been and even continued use. And obviously within our customer base, heavy use of ELK and using Elasticsearch and Kibana for log analysis. But I think now it's gotten to the point where there's inherent advantages and changes within open source that make it more of a strategic investment versus a tool to solve a particular problem. So I think that shift has sort of been happening in terms of the level of investment and how seriously commercial vendors are taking the open source community. And I think that that's super apparent with open telemetry. That's been a massive investment for dozens of vendors and end users as well to try to really change the fundamental business of observability and monitoring. So what's your take on open telemetry in terms of what you're seeing and hearing within your research and discussions?
Yeah, there's so much enthusiasm behind it. And I think that's super interesting, right? Because for a long time, there have been related sort of similar types of projects that just didn't really get off the ground. And now it suddenly seems like you said, there's a lot of support, and particularly from the vendor community, which is interesting. I think there's some good benefits for vendors, but ultimately there's also really good benefits for end users, right? So, like when you begin to think about APM in particular, one thing I think that's going to get really interesting is it makes it easier for vendors to do more traditional APM. So, this has already been the case with distributed tracing, right? Which in some ways has been somewhat standardized for longer. I mean, there's been good open source projects there that have made it really easy for vendors to add, relatively easy to add distributed tracing. And as open telemetry matures, I think it's also going to be easy for vendors to add more traditional APM, right? So with sort of the standardization of bytecode instrumentation for languages and runtimes used in more traditional apps, vendors can more easily add that, whereas in the past, that would be really difficult. And so the benefit for end users in that particular scenario is there's a better potential for an end user to reduce the number of vendors that they're juggling in their monitoring, right? And once you can do that, that can solve some problems that organizations face in terms of tool sprawl, maybe makes it easier to analyze all the monitoring data you're collecting sort of together in ways that can give you some better insight. So I think those are some really interesting potential outcomes. And the other thing I will also say that I think is really interesting around open telemetry is from an end user perspective, it makes it easier to potentially actually collect a set of data once, but ship it to a bunch of different places, which also has some really interesting implications just in terms of instrumentation and sort of managing agents and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, I think it's been really interesting.
Yeah, I mean, it's also good to see what everyone wants to work on out in the open. Like, for example, the thing that you were just mentioning around tracing and APM, most of the open source tools do straight distributed tracing, so it's more of a debugging tool. And APM is used for more operational monitoring. So something that we're actually working on in the Jaeger and open telemetry communities that you can see publicly is figuring out how to build metric data off of tracing, which is something that's inherently not built into the standards, but something that you need to take that tracing data and use it for operations. So that's like a good example of out in the open, collaborate on this stuff that, we think will make APM capabilities more widely accessible to users of Prometheus and other, open source metrics technologies. So
interesting. Yeah. And I think that's interesting because, like you said, it's out in the open. I think what's also interesting then is, that vendors have the opportunity potentially to dedicate resources towards more interesting stuff than some of the basic stuff that open telemetry is managing, right? Like, every vendor historically has had to build their own agents, but they're all relatively similar. So let's standardize that and let agents vendors try to differentiate themselves on more interesting technology, right?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, all the agent groups that were building agents were kind of doing the same reverse engineering of frameworks, and it was, pretty counterproductive when you had to tie up half of your R&D budget to manage agents. I mean, it's something we've avoided this from the beginning at our organization because we only use open source data collection. So we have no proprietary data collection in our stack, which allows us to focus on analytics and other things that are more differentiated for users versus data collection that's relatively similar between technologies. So, cool. So speaking of Prometheus, which comes up a lot, and we're doing some pretty interesting things. You'll hear some announcements coming from us through the end of the year around Prometheus specifically. But it's a super interesting topic. In our podcast that we do every month, we've seen the highest audiences and interest on topics of Prometheus. So it's definitely like the number one hot thing going on. And, a lot of this is really the fact that the Cloud Native Computing Foundation and the ecosystem around Prometheus makes it easy to consume metrics for many different solutions. But I just wanted to get your take on why you think Prometheus is of such high interest and and just what you're seeing around the community regarding Prometheus. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm seeing a huge lift in Prometheus related to Kubernetes. So because of the really tight integration, a lot of people, when they start using Kubernetes, they automatically start using Prometheus, right? And I think that has really driven a lot of interest in Prometheus. But frankly, I also think that that's helping to lift this interest in open source in monitoring in general, right? So people start using Prometheus, they maybe get involved in the community to learn more about best practices around it. They learn about other potential open source projects going on and tools that are out there. So I think that's, Kubernetes is a really, really big driver for this. So, it's interesting when in our research, we ask people about, why they're choosing open source monitoring tools. And what's interesting to me is the top response to a survey we did recently was that customization was really a big draw. And I thought that was interesting that ended up raising to the top because I do think customization is interesting, but when I talk to users, I don't necessarily hear about a lot of customization. I hear about some, what I would think of as kind of like minor stuff, but at least that's a draw, right? That's a reason that people are interested in it is the potential for it. So I don't know what do you hear about that? Do you hear about people being interested in customizing and actually doing it?
Well, I think it sort of depends how you define customization. I think that it's adaptable, right? So this means that I can use it with various automation systems. If I want to run infrastructure as code, if I want to manage with an API, all of the options are available. There's no one telling you what you can and can't do.
Yep.
So I don't know that it's people that want to change the source code. They just want to fit it into a particular part of their technology stack that maybe isn't as standardized, or they have lots of use cases for it that are not the typical use case. So, it makes sense, but that's a really broad word, right? What is customization, right?
Yeah, I bet you're right.
Yeah, for sure. Cool. So the other thing that comes up a lot is this whole concept of why do people initially adopt open source? And in a lot of ways, this comes up because an engineer sees a problem. I need to monitor something. They then go to find a tool. They find something that's accessible, easy to use, that they can stand up on their own, happens to be open source. So this is usually the beginning of the journey, and then it ends up turning into more and more of that person's role and responsibility and starts to be a burden on the rest of their work. So something that folks don't really think about or maybe don't spend as much time on is understanding the cost of open source. There's no license cost to it, but there's definitely costs. I wanted to see your take on the whole open source is free and what cost really means there.
Yeah. I find in general, I think people do a pretty poor job of measuring ROI of monitoring tools, whether they're open source or commercial. So that is a topic that I ask people a lot. And I'm usually surprised at how poor of a job people do at actually examining that. So when you're talking specifically about open source, one thing curiously that I find that people don't factor in when they're looking at the cost to use open source monitoring is people. It's like they don't acknowledge at all that, if you're using pure open source, someone has to run that software. Even if you're running it in the cloud, there's management overhead involved. And for some reason, people very often don't think of that cost. And to me, that's such an important cost because that person who's managing that piece of open source software is skilled. Like that's a valuable person in your organization. And I would argue that their skills are better dedicated to something that's really sort of underscoring your business, right? That's like driving your business forward and not just managing some piece of software, right? So people often don't consider that. They just look at, either cloud or server costs, which I think is really interesting. Now, that said, over time, I've been definitely observing this. There's this real sort of tipping point particularly with Prometheus, and it's very scale related. So there's a point where you're collecting too much data. If you have to add a backend database and then manage that, if you're trying to federate search, this all adds a lot of overhead, and people then actually begin to recognize how much people power it's taking to maintain that. And then what they want to do is shift. I mean, frankly, what they really want is SaaS. I mean, they want that open source software to sort of be, they want to use it, but they want it to be managed in some way. So I'm seeing them begin to look for vendors that can allow them to preserve the existing investment that they've made in open source software, and in this case, particularly Prometheus, but maybe offload some of that management. So that's a really common path I've been seeing recently.
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah.
So the last topic I wanted to touch on a little bit that actually came up in a recent customer advisory board that we had a couple of weeks back is we were talking to some of our customers about how security is starting to factor into their roles as an operations team. And, we've been hearing about this whole DevSecOps thing for many years. It's sort of not really taken hold, I would say, but it certainly seems like a good idea. But these security teams, you're talking about a really small group and a very large, comparatively large group of folks doing development and operations. So a lot of the work the security team finds, the remediation ends up having to happen within the ops teams or the DevOps teams. I just wanted to see from your discussions or your research if you see more of this happening. Do you think that the tools that DevOps teams are using need to adapt to this trend, or do you think that they'll just adopt different tools, to focus on security? Just wanted to see what you were hearing.
Yeah, I mean, I do think that there's a bit of an evolution in terms of how people are defining DevSecOps, right? I think there was a time when people started talking about DevSecOps when people were thinking that meant the DevOps team handled all things security. And I think there's been a recognition that that's probably not a great idea, right? Like there are security related things that a DevOps team can do, but it's still very valuable to have security focused people. I mean, it's a challenging skill, right? Like you can't just sort of incorporate that amongst like all these other things that you do for someone who would
But some of the things you can do is build security into your CI or your CD pipeline to automate some of the best practices.
And that's a lot of what I'm seeing, and we're actually seeing that in our research as well. So when we ask DevOps teams, are you incorporating more security related activities into your workflow? People increasingly are telling us yes. So that's going up and up over time. And that's things like you said, like doing vulnerability assessments, API security testing, stuff like that you're doing within your workflow. In a lot of cases, those practices are informed and or supported by your security professionals, right? Your people who are dedicated to security. They're helping the DevOps teams say, this is the type of stuff that you should be doing within your workflow. And I also think that there's been a maturing of security tools such that DevOps people are, willing to do this because incorporating these tools into their workflows no longer means adding a ton of time, right? It's not slowing down the DevOps process. And so they're willing to incorporate this stuff. So that's really the activity that I'm mostly seeing in terms of DevSecOps, although I think you're totally right when you say that, DevOps teams are clearly being tapped to do the work, to help out when a security team discovers something really bad going on.
Yeah, for sure. So I did have one final parting thought. What do you think is next? Like, what's the thing that we're going to be talking about next year? What are some of the trends that you have identified or that you're keeping a close eye on beyond some of the things that maybe we spoke about today?
Yeah. I think automation is going to become increasingly something that people talk about. And that's a very broad term. And it's something I've noticed that leads to very confusing conversations, right? Because when you're talking automation in monitoring and incident response, you could be talking about, automatic ticket creation. You could be talking about, automatic thresholding. You could be talking about auto remediation. These are all really, really different things that impact different parts of the workflow, might require different kinds of tools, might require different kinds of stakeholders within the organization to be involved with. So I think that the more people begin to think specifically about different types of automations that they can apply, and specifically why, right? Like what the benefits are. And then, more and more sort of best practices, I think, are going to begin to evolve and get built into tooling and workflows. So I think that automation is going to be a really hot topic down the road.
Yeah, well, thanks for the great discussion today. Appreciate it. And always great to get your opinion and where you think things are headed. And thanks for joining us, and look forward to many more great discussions with you, maybe in person at some point too.
Yeah, that'd be nice.
All right, thank you.
Thanks.
And thank you very much, Jonah and Nancy. As every time I watch a session like this, I come away with more questions, and I'm going to need to Google stuff, especially around some of the deeper stuff you covered in OTel and things like Prometheus. So yeah, I'm gonna have to Google more. I obviously need to research more stuff. So we're on to our next session, and that's going to be our other co-founder and the VP of product at Logz.io. That is Asaf Eagle. He's going to be going into a lot more detail than Thomas did earlier, covering what's happening and what's coming up soon. So I would keep your hands near the chat so you can start asking questions, because it's going to get pretty deep. So let's go and watch Asaf.
Hey everyone, my name is Asaf, and I'm one of the co-founders of Logz.io and the VP of products here. Very excited to be in this session and tell you all the cool stuff that we've been working on in the past year or so, and stuff that we're releasing now and stuff that we're going to release in the coming few weeks and or months. So obviously I'm a proud member of the Logz.io team. I use the product on a daily basis. I'm a developer at heart, so I have a lot of passion for the product. I have a lot of passion for the products that we develop and products in general. First product that we're announcing, and it's available within the next few weeks, is a distributed tracing product. So as a tradition with Logz.io, we build our products on open source. And we've decided to offer Jaeger, which is an open source that's been developed and open source by Uber as a distributed tracing solution for Logz.io. The power of Jaeger is that, first of all, the integration and the connectivity that it already supports. So it supports obviously Jaeger, it supports Zipkin as a format, it supports Open Telemetry, and it supports a lot of other formats, and we're going to offer it as part of the service. This is going to be built for Kubernetes. It's built for a distributed environment, and it's built to help you try and analyze and monitor the performance of your distributed environment. Few key points that we're having in this product. One of them is obviously the low cost of it. So as opposed to traditional APM solution, which costs a lot of money, the Jaeger and the distributed traces as a service with Logz.io is going to be extremely efficient when it comes to cost, and we're working hard to make sure that it's very affordable. So roughly 70% cheaper of what the market provide today on different products. We also developed a correlation between Jaeger, Kibana, and Grafana. So you can look at a trace, you can see what's going on. If something doesn't seem right, you can go to, say, the CPU or the memory or the microservice. You can go to the logs and see the exceptions that are happening right now on that that machine or that pod or that specific microservice. So excited to announce this. This is going to be generally available in December 2020, which is just a few weeks away. Happy to hear feedback about it and your experience. Second product that we're announcing is Prometheus as a service. So about a year ago, we launched our metrics solution, and which is based on Grafana, on the open source Grafana. We're proud to announce now that we're going to offer Prometheus as a cloud service. So you're going to be able to connect your own Prometheus. You can send data. Again, this also supports open telemetry and send all the metrics to Logz.io. With the metrics, you can also export and import your existing dashboard. So the transition from your own Prometheus environment to us is going to be seamless. What are the values of value of using Prometheus as a service as opposed to setting up your own Prometheus? Because setting up your own Prometheus seems like a very simple or easy task to do, especially if you're running in a Kubernetes environment. So two main things that we focus on. One of them is long-term retention. As Prometheus comes, it comes as a monitoring system, as an operation system. It does not come with a long-term retention. We're going to offer 18 months of retention with Prometheus, and this is part of the value that we provide. We also integrated with ELK, we integrated with Kibana, and we're going to integrate it with Jaeger, which I talked about in the previous slides. We also can create a correlated alerts between the metrics and the logs. So you can say, hey, I want to get alerted if my CPU goes above 60% and the number of exceptions I have in my system goes about 10 exceptions per hour or something like that. You can correlate between all of that and run more sophisticated alerts. That's going to help you reduce the noise that you get from alerts and make it easier for you to troubleshoot. Also, cost effective is important for us. This product is starting at $9 per host, similar to our metric solution that we start today, but with 100% compatibility to Prometheus and obviously open telemetry. This product is going to be available as a private beta in December 2020, and we intend to launch this sometimes during Q1 2021. Really excited about this product, and again, happy for you to join the beta and get your feedback and participate in building this and helping us do this. Third product that we're going to announce and we're launching is basically a do-it-yourself, very simple synthetic monitoring. So we're going to work on this product in the next year, but what we're releasing right now is a way for you to do it yourself. And we know synthetic monitoring, which is the ability to look at the website, see that it's up, see that the login page is working, see that the purchasing page is working, see that the main flows are working, is a very, very extremely expensive offering today. And what we do is, in our tradition, we took an open source and we're relying on Selenium WebDriver right now. And we give you scripts either in CloudFormation or ARM to be able to deploy these on your own environment. So you'll be able to select, hey, these are the URL that I want to sample. I'm going to sample it every 5 minutes. And with the CloudFormation, I'm going to deploy them to all the different AWS regions that I want to run it from, so I can check responsiveness and connectivity from different places in the world. Again, this is not a synthetic monitoring product, but this is a way for you to take a stab at it, and with a very, very simple solution, be able to do it yourself, literally with a click of a button, and be able to run it and monitor your website. Phase 2, which is going to be early next year, we're going to enable Selenium scripts, so you can try logging in, you can try purchasing, and you can try all the main flow. Again, this is all something that you do on your own, and we provide the open source capabilities and open source utilities to do it. By the way, this thing is available now, so you can go to our website and check it out, and again, give us some feedback around this. So these were the products that we're announcing and releasing, and I want to talk a little bit about a few improvements that we've done over the year, and we're still doing it, releasing it in a few weeks. First thing we've done is we've invested a lot in the past 6 months in our performance improvement. So we did a lot of monitoring. Key thing, we've been using our own Jaeger product to be able to detect it. And this is what drove us to release this as a product, because we've seen the tremendous value and the complexity of running it on your own. So we ran Jaeger, we looked at the traces, we looked at the performance, we've made some significant improvements, reduced it by tenfold the ability to query, the ability to load the service, the ability to navigate through the UI, and this is a major thing for us. We do see performance as the key driver for Logz.io, and if you guys run into performance issues, if you guys have any questions around it, please contact us, because we would work with you and try to make sure what's going on. If there's an issue, we would absolutely fix it. This is our mission, to fix performance challenges in the system. Sub-accounts is one of Logz.io's premier features and capabilities. The ability to basically say, hey, I have one account, but I work with 20 departments, and each department have a production and a development and staging, and each one of them need a separate account or a separate index. We've been giving you the ability to create those indices since the beginning of Logz.io, and customers that use it see a lot of value from it. What we're releasing right now is a flexible sub-account, which means up until now, you could allocate the capacity that you have purchased, that you're using between the sub-accounts. So if you have purchased a terabyte account, you can allocate a 10 account of 100 gigabytes, for example. And this capacity would be fixed, and you would allocate that to different departments. What we're enabling now is to create flexible sub-account. So these accounts, you can set up their minimum capacity, but they can grow based on available capacity in other sub-accounts. The purpose of this is to make you a lot more efficient with how you operate the system and the capacity that you're using. So you can hold, if this is a production environment and you know that you need at least 500 gigabytes for production environment, you can hold that information and you can hold that account size. But if accounts that are dev, you can allocate them 10 or 20 or 50 gigabytes, and they can grow as needed. And if there's obviously no capacity left in the account, they would be the first one to be stopped, and the ingestion, and then you'll be able to enjoy the capacity in other accounts that actually need it. So this feature is already available in production. Feel free, this is a capability within the sub-account definition to define the flexible sub-account. Security perspective. So security is very important to us. Part of our security mechanisms, we introduced multiple shipping tokens. So right now you can ship with as many shipping tokens to Logz.io, and you can start and stop them. So if you have a policy of key rotation, of token rotation, then this is something that we give you the ability. Again, you can go to the UI, create another token, you get the ID, you can propagate it throughout the environment. When the old one dies, you can stop it, and then you can do a key rotation and expire and create it as much as you want. I'm going to touch now on a few changes that we've done to the alert. So obviously alerts is a very strong capability within Logz.io. I mentioned earlier, right now we have the ability to create alerts on logs. We have the ability to create an alert that is correlated between metrics and logs. We will have the ability to create alerts that are correlated within logs, traces, and metrics. One of the things we've introduced now, and it's first of its kind, is the ability to create alerts with correlations for Elasticsearch. So up until now, Elasticsearch is very limited with its ability to correlate data between two different data sets. We give you the ability to basically say, hey, I want to be able to correlate the alert. I want to run an alert saying, hey, I'm going to get too many errors on this system and a user logged into the system at the same time, or something like that, that are events that are completely unrelated. And we give you the ability to create correlation between them. Second thing we did is improve the alert accuracy. As logs come into the system, some of them come at different rates and some of them come at different latencies. If you read logs from an S3 bucket, they can come in a different interval based on your interval of writing to the S3 bucket. If you ship the logs directly to us, they come at different intervals. And all of these things can basically impair the accuracy of the alerts, especially if you want to get an alert about something that doesn't happen. So I want to get an alert when my server doesn't send a ping. So how much time should I wait? 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 1 minute? It all depends on how the alerts and how the data is flowing into the system. So we create sensitivity within the system and detection of the flow of the data, and we set up the alerts and we let you know exactly when it's coming through, and by that basically improving the alert accuracy in the system. Alert preview, you can now preview the alerts, and basically you can preview the alerts, and basically if you define an alert and you don't know what the outcome is going to be, click on the alert preview, you see the preview, you see the results, and it makes it easier for you to understand what you're doing. Duplicate alerts. You can now duplicate the alert. So if you define an alert and you want to give the same alert with a minor modification, instead of redefining the same alert, click duplicate, duplicate the same alert, and basically change whatever you want to change. Makes it very easy from a UX perspective. AI at Logz.io. So far we have 3 AI components. We have the cognitive insight, which is what we do is we crawl and scan the internet for known issues in IT environment, and we surface them for you as if everyone on the internet can help you and troubleshoot your issues. We have the application insight, which is automatic detection of errors and exceptions. And we have the log patterns to be able to correlate logs, to be able to make you troubleshoot quicker. What we're doing right now, we've integrated our AI into the Kibana search. So when you have a problem and we have something you're troubleshooting, you go into Kibana, you can immediately see everything in context. So you can see the patterns that are in context, and you can see the insights that are in context, and the errors and exceptions that are in context. So you don't need to scroll between two different screens or different tabs. You just see everything in one place. This is already available in the system in production. And again, we'd be happy to hear feedback about this and about the insights in general. Data tiering. We've introduced the smart tier, which Tomer talked about at length when we introduced some of the capabilities that we have. We are the company or the service that have the most optionality when it comes to different data storage. So obviously we have the real-time tier, the hot tier, which is highly availability, highly performance. The unique thing about our smart tier is that it's just as high performance as the real-time tier, but it has a different variable availability. So as opposed to doing 99.5%, it's available at 97%. So you give up a little bit of availability. Obviously, the data is there. The data is never being lost, but we cool it and we restore it as necessary. And we have smart algorithm to be able to revive the data as we see that you're asking for it. This is again available now. Just 2 different tiers that we already have in our environment. The historical tier, which is the ability to store the data in an S3 bucket or Azure blob, and be able to retrieve them. And same thing with a timeless account, which is the ability to real-time compress the data, save it in a timeless index that never dies, but has a fixed limited capacity, and just store the data that you need for that amount of time. Self-service data parsing. About a few years ago, we released Summit, which is a high-performance library for data parsing. What we're releasing now, which is going to be available in early 2021, is the ability to self-service. So we build an editor. The editor you can do it's a self-service, it's autocomplete, and you can try it out. You can post a sample log line, and you can develop a pipeline. You can see the results it's going to be, and you can immediately propagate it in the system. What we do is basically democratizing the ability to define pipelines. So if you work in an environment and there's like 100 developers, 200 developers, they don't all need to come to a single person and say, hey, I have a new log type, now you have to parse it for me, and can you help me with this, can you help me with that? You can do it on your own. So you can put the log line, you can define the sawmill pipeline, you can see the outcome, you can click update, and it's already going to the system. Just as a reminder here, we also offer this as a service. So if you don't know how to do it, if you're having challenges doing it, or you're doing something that you don't think is as optimized, there's a chat button on the bottom right. Click the chat, say, hey, I need some help. Can you help me parse this file? And we will do this in this service for you. But just so you know, the ability to self-service it is going to be available very, very soon. Last but not least is Logz.io SIEM, Security Information and Event Management Solution. It's a security product that collects security information, relying on the infrastructure of ELK. A few improvements that we've done over the year in the SIEM solution. So one of them is alerts with correlation. I mentioned it briefly when I talked about the log analytic. Obviously, they rely on the same infrastructure, so they can benefit from one another. You can define a correlated alert saying, hey, I want to get alerted if a user logged into the system successfully after he's been failing to log in for 10 times or something like that. You can set up rules that saying, hey, a user that used to be logging in from the US is logging in from China or something like that. And you can obviously correlate all these things into alerts and into rules. We've introduced private feeds. If you have your own feed, if you purchased a feed that is more dedicated to the business that you are running, we can implement it, and this is all self-service. You can define the feed, and you can see the outcome. Implemented multi-security accounts for large organizations, for organizations that want to be able to define different accounts for different parts of the organization. We give that capability. And last but not least, we've added additional data feed. We continue to always add additional feeds. So we have added Fish Tank that is owned and operated by OpenDNS. We've created Rescue IT, which is different malware that are very specific to the COVID-19 and different hacks that are happening around the pandemic. We've added other IP cybersecurity environments, both around IP, DNSs, email addresses, hash codes, and stuff like that. So that'll be all. Thank you very much for watching. And if you have any question, we're here to help you. Thank you.
Thanks, Asaf. I'm not gonna lie, give me the Jaeger, I want to play with it. It's been around in the company for a while. I've obviously played with it, but I want to actually do stuff in the wild with everybody else and actually do some integrations and things like that. It's, as an engineer, want to play, thank God. So next up is something a little bit different over what you've seen. It's a customer panel. It's a conversation around pain-free open source monitoring. So what we've done is we've gathered up some of our customers and we're going to have a chat about it. So first up is Michael Knox, VP Technology Operations at Pivotree, Andre Boutet, Senior Director Cloud Operations and Services at OneSpan, and Jonathan Rosenfeld, the Manager SRE at Chrome River. Now, they're being moderated by our very own Janelle Fortuny, who is the Director of Global Sales Enablement at Logz.io. She's new, so be nice to her. And just as a bit of a heads up, this panel is kind of big, and we wanted you to be able to leave and go for lunch and actually get up from your desk today. So we've cut it down a bit so you can actually watch all the important bits and still have some time. So let's watch.
Hello, everybody. I am Janelle Fortelny. I'm the Director of Sales Enablement here at Logz.io, and with me I have Jonah Kowal, our CTO. Today, we would love to hear from you about how you are scaling to meet demand for customers and how Logz.io allows you to maximize your observability in that process and also decrease the challenges typically faced when you're using those open source tools. So we'll just go around the table really quickly. I'd love to learn more about your environment. If you could just give us a description of the environment and your general infrastructure strategy. We will go ahead and start with Jonathan.
Hey, thank you. We have a cloud environment in AWS and with a lot of microservices, most of them on Kubernetes. We also have some Python cron jobs that run, and some monolithic apps that are Java.
Jonathan, could you tell us a little bit about your observability goals for the coming 20 months or any major initiatives that you have coming?
Sure. One big thing that we've seen going to Logz.io is that we generate a lot of logs from a lot of our services that maybe are unnecessary. So what we would like to do is get that volume down to the minimum that we can, so that if we need to turn on additional logging, verbose logging, we can, and we have the headroom for it, or if we want to add new services, we're not worried about what that's going to do to our volume. So we've been using the patterns feature on Logz.io frequently to find some log patterns that we could either drop or adjust to make better for our developers. That's really our biggest thing going forward in terms of logs. For 2021, we do want to become metric-driven decision makers. So we can use Logz.io to calculate those metrics and make sure that we're hitting our KPI.
It's also really important to note that Jonathan touched on is optimizing your logging and observability will actually speed up your applications, because anytime that you're generating data for no reason, you're not processing user requests and transactions. So it is critical to always optimize that. So it's awesome to hear that your team is focused on the right thing there.
Yeah, and we were even overwhelming our log pushers previously, which we are no longer doing. So we were definitely generating more than enough logs.
Okay, Michael, you are up next. Could you tell us a little bit about your environment and your general infrastructure strategy, and also any observability goals or initiatives that you have in the coming year?
Yeah, so as a managed service provider, we have quite the eclectic environment. We're in multiple data centers through North America and Europe. We're in AWS and Azure. So depending on how the customer feels is typically where we go. But as a business, we're strategizing around AWS first and pushing through there. So my personal goal for 2021 is to shut down as many data centers as possible, which is a bit of a task. The application environments we have are typically heavy Oracle environments. A lot of Oracle database, a lot of JBoss, a lot of WebLogic type sort of applications. So they don't typically containerize very well. So in terms of like observability, we try to focus on SLOs around business metrics, as things like order management through orders, cart abandonment, and things like that, and trying to steer the teams away from ping up, ping down, CPU loads and stuff like that. And whilst those are important metrics, they're not the ones that are telling you the business outcome for our customers. So really trying to turn it away from the historical monitoring model.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Andre, please tell us a little bit about your environment and your infrastructure strategy.
Yeah. So we're running out of a myriad of global footprints on AWS mainly. We are running solely on AWS right now, with the exception of a federal platform that runs on Azure. Outside of that, one of the things we're looking at, or one of the big things we're looking at, is expanding services into other service providers in order to supplement our services with an array of bolt-on services, whether it be regional DR as an example, where you may want to supplement your DR offering with something that is regional, which is common in SaaS. Or things like things like better SMS services in South America for better delivery of signing, or making the signing experience better. OTP, running authentication out of Europe for customers in Australia or in Singapore as an example. We may want to try to figure something out around that. So we have our load of challenges on the not challenges, but exploration areas in public cloud. How do we, and then it's all about strategy, right? So how do we do this on-prem to hybrid to cloud conversion for our customers? It's a cloud first mentality that we've sort of been working on implementing culture-wise. Not cloud only, but we will go cloud first. So all of these things tie into the strategy, and the reason why we're there is because of the fact that we've augmented our ability to alert and respond, and we've augmented our ability to support and maintain and keep running at a very high threshold what we have deployed. So now we can look at expanding. And again, this all ties into the fact that you have managed services at the tooling level, which means that you can focus on uptime availability and service versus supporting tools.
So Jonathan, we're going to go ahead and start with you. Can you tell me a little bit about how you came to be using the Elk Stack today, and really just any color you'd like to add around that and how it's affecting your business?
Sure, thank you. We've been using an Elk Stack for a while at Chrome River and Imburse. Really, since we started, we were using open source self-managed logs. And that worked well for us when we were a startup and didn't have too many customers and weren't bringing customers on at the pace that we are now. Over the years, we lost some expertise on the Elk Stack, and there were just a few people left at our company who worked on it, and I wouldn't necessarily call them subject matter experts. So when there was an issue, they really had to drop everything and research a solution. Or if we wanted to add new features or update, there was, excuse me, there was some time involved in that. And that also took them away from some of their other duties. So we really did want to find a hosted log solution where we would have a support team as well as new features coming out that could be shown to us, and maybe we can get a demo, things like that. While we were researching, we came across a few solutions and decided that we wanted to stick with what was familiar to us, which was the Elk Stack. That made the transition pretty easy for us, and we didn't really have to introduce any of our existing employees to a new technology.
Great, great. Yeah, it sounds like a big part of your decision to choose Logz.io was the fact that it would be, everything would be managed for you. Has that made a pretty significant difference in your ability to get other things done?
Yes, and actually since going to Logz.io, we've pushed a lot of new logs for our new services as well as shared services among our different brands. So we are even seeing more stuff today in our logs than we were seeing a year ago.
Fantastic, thank you. Michael, let's go ahead on over to you next. So what I would like to learn from you is a little more about how using open source is a business advantage for you. So how far does your investment in open source tools go today?
Pretty far. I mean, prior to onboarding with Logs, we had 6 independent Elk Stacks. We're big users of Grafana and Zabbix and things like that. So it is quite strategic. Off-the-shelf software is not always the cheapest, and at scale doesn't necessarily work as well in terms of cost set metrics. So we often will turn to open source first to try and fill a need, and then if we have to buy, then that's what we will do.
Great, thank you. Next up, Andre. So what we'd like to learn from you first is, what have you done internally to make onboarding new tools and your teams go faster? So how are you using Logz.io today for observability? And are there any particular challenges that you're facing?
Yep. So one of the cool things we did was, in order to onboard people quicker, is just remove a lot of the clutter we have in and around the tool sets that were lying around and try to centralize, into this single pane, right? Single glass pane of visibility. Initially, we had the Logs lab. We were just doing logs, and we had another vendor providing APM functionality and another provider providing sort of metrics. And essentially, what we've seen and what we like over time is the ability to consolidate all of those into one tool. From a management perspective, you can understand that it makes my life easier to have to manage only one vendor rather than managing many. And not having to manage IT is also really cool, because I don't want to be calling them to add storage or add servers or add capacity because some developer or team or group deployed something and forgot to turn debug off or any of those types of things that we've all seen. So what it does, I'll try to keep the answer brief. What it does is it allows me to take somebody from on the street and bring him into a seat, especially working from home, and have him go in and say, this is where you see your logs. This is how they're formatted. This is how they come in. That's on the operations side, whether it be DevOps, Ops, or the SRE function. Yeah, and on the other side, through the enterprise architects and platform enterprise architects, it allows us to push down method and process into the development teams as to how we want to receive the logs, what we're going to do with them, the importance of triggers, the importance of alerting against those logs. And over time, so it's been about 2 years now, over time, we've gotten to the point where they can onboard much quicker as well, because as soon as they come on board, they know where to look. Now we've gone to the next level, which is introducing metrics and introducing tracing, which brings us even closer to the goal of having this single pane of this ability to trace and see things happening in real time, and it makes things very interesting and makes things very easy. So for us, onboarding somebody now is just about getting an access and being able to go into the portal and being able to navigate it. So it's become a very straightforward process. Whereas before, as my peers mentioned, here's your access to this elk stack, and here's your access to that elk stack. Oh, and by the way, here's your access to Splunk, and here's your access to this other tool. Well, no, here's your access, and that's where we're at now.
Great, thank you. And I'd like to pose the same question back over to Jonathan. So when we talked a second ago about the different advantages that using open source has on your business, what about actually implementing those tools and onboarding? How has using logs affected that process for you?
To be honest, it hasn't changed our onboarding that much. It's just one of many tools that we have right now, and we have it connected through our SSO. So really just onboarding is making sure that they have access through, right now we use one login, and then we have tutorials available for them on the logging. In terms of onboarding in other areas, we really are reworking our onboarding process right now. So I don't unfortunately have too much to share about our onboarding process.
So one other question for you, Jonathan, just because Andre brought it up, but what are you doing around metrics and tracing? Maybe you could share a little bit, because it sounds like you're pretty open source aligned, and just kind of curious what your strategy was.
We've demoed the metrics product, but right now out of the box, we were pushing way too many metrics. So we've really concentrated more on the logging area of Logz.io right now. As we've been growing over the past year, we've been trying to become more metric driven. And in 2021, we really want to drive almost all our business decisions based around metrics. So in terms of setting up alerts based on like log volume and how many logs we're generating, and working with developers to try to reduce that volume, make sure that our logs are informative and they make sense to everyone.
Yeah.
All right, Michael, I do have a follow-up for you, and the response that you gave a second ago, we were talking about the different open source tools that you're using. You mentioned you are currently using, multiple different instances of the Elk stack, right? So in terms of observability, like what is the ultimate goal in having visibility into each one of those? Like, what are the specific challenges that you're trying to resolve in using Logz.io in conjunction with these other tools that you have?
Yeah, so firstly, it's to not have 6 instances of Elk. I mean, that was someone's clever idea years ago. We've been onboarding with Logz, and most of those are decom now. We've got one left. Like I said at the beginning, we've mostly ticked the compliance box. So it's a massive untapped realization of the telemetry that we have there. We onboarded our security team with the Cloud SIM product from Logz as well, and they're elated. It also proved that we were doing logging very badly. So we've had to improve, garbage in, garbage out. So, we're having to go back and redeploy a lot of configs with our the Filebeat configs and the like. So, yeah. So very, very early in our observability journey.
Very good. So, Michael, you mentioned something pretty interesting that we don't hear a lot, which is security and operations almost working together more efficiently. Is that like part of the strategy that you want to do that? Or was it more of like an opportunity where you said, hey, we have this thing, why don't you take a look at it for your security needs?
Both, I'd say, right? Like, I mean, ops and sec are usually at odds, and it doesn't move things along well. And this was a purchase synergy and an operational synergy that we could align ourselves on, and to try and build a bit of bridges between two enemies at times, right? So yeah.
Because you just end up doing a lot of the work the security team mandates is an issue once they find the problem anyway. So it almost short circuits some of the, remediation efforts that occur there.
That's right. And logging is not a security control, right? I mean, it is the security around it, but it's application, it's support, it's, triaging, things like that. And so if you don't find those synergies with your security partners, then you'll end up with multiple logging instances, and that cost blowouts happen as a result. So if you can find alignment, then it's advantageous to do so.
So Andre, we on the last question that I asked you, we talked about onboarding new tools and making teams go faster and how you're using Logz for that. But we never got into specifically which open source tools you are using and why you chose those.
Yeah, so we try to keep our open source tooling, contained. There's a lot of trials and errors and MVPing going on at any given time. When possible, I would much prefer to have my tools managed. We've had this discussion in the past where I believe in managed services from the extent of cloud service providers, so that I can focus, so we can focus on what we need to do, which is delivering good code and good products. So for us, from an open source perspective, at least on the cloud operation, like at least in OneSpan, we sort of limited that when I started, where we said, this is where we're going, this is the vision, this is the direction we want to go in. We don't want to have 3 or 4 people building one thing and then 4 or 5 building another, and then one person leaves and we're stuck. So this has been the driving force. Now, we do have a Prometheus stack sitting on the security tooling side, and it does what it does, and it's been made to monitor some service level, some SLOs and some SLIs with regards to service availability. So it lives and breathes. I would say probably it's on a respirator as we move forward in time. Obviously, we do some HashiCorp stuff as well with regards to key management and these types of things. But to be very honest, if you're offering enterprise level services with the security that comes with it and the realm where we operate, which is banking and finance and this type of thing, it's a lot easier when your tooling is managed, or when your tooling that is core critical to your service is licensed in enterprise level. So we sort of use a lot of open source stuff to run development, a lot of in-house, but on our cloud offering, a lot of the tools that are present are licensed and officially supported.
Excellent. All right, I think that covers everything, guys.
Thank you, everybody from the panel. That was a lot of information. Probably gonna need to Google some of that. I'm not gonna lie. Me feel noob. So it's a bit of a break now. So first up, it's the question time in the chat. So your chance to get a little bit of a prize. So listen here, run there, answer, see who wins. And the question is, in the customer panel, what cloud storage providers does Michael say Pivotree uses? So now go answer, let's go. But we're also going to be having a quick break now so that you can have some comfort time. So we have Corey Samuels, who's one half of Brothers Who Brick, and they're going to be designing a custom ScaleUp Lego sign. So if you don't need to go, stick around, watch that, and then we'll get into the next session.
Hey everyone, my name is Corey Samuels. I am one of the contestants from the hit TV show Lego Masters, one half of the Brothers Who Brick from that show. And I am so excited to be joining you for your ScaleUp Conference 2020. Now, ScaleUp, when I think of ScaleUp, I think of Lego, right? Lego is something that I really like, as you can see around me in my office area. Yes, this is my office, a big Lego room. What do you think of that? Anyway, when I think about ScaleUp, I think about something awesome. I think about something really, really cool that I would like to build. And I would like to show you guys how to build. When I'm teaching Lego, the first thing I want to teach people is what's the difference between stacking and overlapping. So I'm going to show you right now. When you think about stacking, this is how stacking works. You have a regular Lego brick, which is called a 2x4 brick, and you have another 2x4 brick. And all you're doing is you're placing them on top of each other. This is known as stacking. Now the difference, overlapping. Overlapping is when you take two bricks and you put a center brick in the middle and you continue the pattern until you have one solid piece. Pretty cool, right? Now before we get started, I want to show you how to build a letter out of Lego. So we're going to choose the letter S, all right? Now, as you can see, this is the letter S. Well, I think that looks a little better, right? Yeah. So, as you can see how I built this S, I placed a brick here, put two other bricks, these are known as 2x2s, and another 2x4, another 2x2, and another 2x4. That's how you get that squiggly line out of bricks. Now remember, bricks is literally squares and rectangles. So it takes a lot of effort to make it look squiggly like this. And guess what? I'm going to show you how to do that with every single letter of your logo. Now, I know that you guys are not here to learn about stacking and overlapping, but those are some of the fundamentals of what we're going to build. I was thinking about it and I thought, what would be better than to build your actual logo for the ScaleUp Conference 2020? So that's exactly what we're going to be building today. So if you're ready, because I'm ready, let's take a look. Your Scale Up Conference 2020 is going to be Lego-fied. And I mean Lego-fied. I think that's a word. It's probably a word. And if it's not a word, guess what? It's a word now. I hope you guys enjoyed what I was able to show you today. My name is Corey Samuels. Once again, contested from Lego Masters, also from the team of Brothers Who Brick. Enjoy your conference, everyone, and I hope you enjoy the Lego model of your logo. Take care. See you later. Bye-bye now.
And how does everybody feel about that Lego? I wish I could play with it. Never stopped really being a 5-year-old, I'm sorry. But you know what? It's really great to see Corey doing it for me. It means I've got less mess on my desk. So next up, we've got a couple of things back to back. And they're going to be, first up, our product manager, Asaf Levenu, who's going to be doing a quick demo of our Insights feature and the exceptions tab. And then after that, we're going to have a customer perspective session. Now, that's going to be, first up, Dish, who are a big deal in the US as a TV provider. Personally, not from the US, so I don't know, but I'm assuming when it comes to TV, it's a big, big thing. So first up, it's going to be Nicole Yarbrough, who's a senior software engineer from Dish. And from our side, from Logz.io, it's going to be Ashley Somerville, who's a senior customer success engineer. Now, they're going to be talking about how, like, something that produces huge amounts of data and information, like a TV network provider, they're going to be showing how they manage the scale of that with Elk through Logz.io. So let's watch.
Hi, everybody. Excited to be here. My name is Asaf Liviano. I'm the core group PM at Logz.io. I'd like to introduce you to our new exception tab, integrated inside the Logz.io Kibana Discover. We finally brought the Insight Engine abilities into Kibana Discover to enrich your investigations with more data. But first, what are these insights I'm talking about? Logz.io proprietary Insight Engine is our AI machine learning algorithm to cluster together exceptions by their signature. With your permission, I'll just use an example I pre-recorded to explain how simple and powerful this feature is. This tale is as old as time. A new version of our service was deployed to production, and now I'm getting alerts and Slack notifications that something is wrong. Let's use the Discover query to start filtering out noise and focus on the problem. As you can see, we pre-arranged an account to show this demo. First, we will filter on the service name. Luckily, its name is Insight Service. Then, let's filter on the time frame I want to investigate, sometime around 4 p.m., like this. As you can see, this is a classic needle in a haystack problem. We have hundreds of logs to go through, and I need help pinpointing the problem. Now, let's turn our attention to the new exceptions tab. As you can see, the Insights Engine was able to identify 3 unique exceptions during the query timeframe. All 3 are interesting, but all 3 have also very different characteristics. The first exception occurred hundreds of times, but although this is a strong indicator, the first occurred of this exception happened in 2018. This is a new problem. I don't want to focus on this exception. I can easily filter out the noise by clicking here. And now the haystack was made much more lighter. As you can see, the document hit rate dropped the moment I filtered out on this exception. Now let's focus on the second exception. This exception was tagged as new by Logz.io. This means the first occurrence was in the queried time frame. This is a very strong indicator. We also have the ability to look at the sample log of this exception easily by clicking the insight itself. Now I can look at the stack trace and sample log. If I want to look at more exceptions from this grouped insights, I can just filter in on this exception, and automatically I move to the log tab, and I can continue my root cause analysis. But from here, it should be rather easy. Thanks a lot for hearing me out. This was a very quick look at our Insights and Discover feature, what we call the Exceptions tab. Hope you enjoyed my small demonstration. This feature will be generally available in the upcoming weeks. And that's all for today. Thanks for listening.
Thank you all for taking the time to join me today. So as mentioned, I am a software engineer at Dish Network. I imagine that most of you are probably somewhat familiar with Dish already. We are a TV service provider. We offer both satellite TV through Dish and then over-the-top IPTV through Sling. And then we're in the process of moving into the wireless space. So we're pretty busy over here. So at Dish, I work in the IT operations side of things, and one of the responsibilities that falls to my team is managing our application logging. So over the past year or so, we've been kind of on a logging journey, and I wanted to kind of share, what we've learned over that. So I'll start with kind of where we began. We had an on-premises elk stack called Thea, named after the tightness of insight Thea, because our goal with this application was to gain more insight into our environment via our logs. So this is just a really high level look at what Thea looks like. So we had Logstash and FileBeat processes running on all of our hosts, writing into a Kafka cluster. Here, a Logstash process would take logs on and off, adding various metadata, and then a final Logstash process would grab those parse logs and send them off to Elasticsearch. So on any given day, we'd have about 100 terabytes of data flowing through the system. And as you can imagine, with that much data came a really large and complex system behind the scenes to support it. And this, of course, led to some troubles for us. I want to say at its worst, Thea would be down about once a week. And whenever that would happen, a few ops members would really have to dedicate the rest of their day to, weighing, ingesting old and new data versus what's prioritized for that time if there's an issue going on. So it's just not a fun process. It's not a fun balancing act. And then, as I mentioned, Thea was entirely on premises, and our hardware had been purchased a few years ago, and it wasn't getting any younger. It was primarily spinning disk, which isn't ideal for Elasticsearch. So we had some issues there as well. So maybe 2 or 3 years ago, we started working on optimizing Thea the best we could. So this involved Dockerizing pieces, automating a lot of the tasks that ops was having to do manually on it, and then performing a thorough log review. So this was all pretty manual and time intensive. But we were ultimately able to make Thea a little more reliable, a little more stable. But as is the nature of business, we continue to grow, we continue to gain more apps and more logs, and there just wasn't much more we could do to Thea without taking a more drastic step. So, at the time, we weren't sure what that would look like, if we would, try to upgrade Thea, replace its hardware, or move off of it completely. So the team and I sat down and identified kind of the key features of what we were looking for in Thea 2.0. What was the future at logging at Dish going to look like? So these were kind of the key things that meant the most to us. And as you may have guessed, Logz.io met all of these checkboxes for us. Coming from an elk stack, going to an elk stack was a lot easier for our users. Their dashboards, alerts, everything migrated, with little to no change needed. They didn't need to learn a new query language. We were just able to give them access and they could kind of, start running right away. So that was great. And then from an ops side, a lot of things that we were having to manually do on our end, setting up these alerts, creating dashboards for teams, obviously handling all the infrastructure now is off of our plate, right? So it's saving us a lot of time. And I just briefly want to touch on the big AI keyword. I know it's a buzzword that everyone likes to throw around, but to us, AI was really more than that. We wanted, a tool that would really help with those log auditing processes that had been just so manual and painful for us in the past. And so the insights and patterns tool that Logz.io offered really caught our eye. And the patterns tool especially, I've already gotten lots of use out of. I know Ashley had mentioned at one point I was the top user of this tool. So I definitely stand behind it and have gotten a lot of good things from it. Okay, so we've selected Logz.io as our logging platform, and now we get to integrate with them. So again, coming from an ELK background, we already had Logstash and FileBeat deployed almost everywhere. So the integration process was pretty seamless. We just needed to update endpoints for the most part. So that was great. And we worked really closely with the Logz.io team during this, and they helped us work through the few issues that we did run into. And I did want to just share one of those really quickly, just in case anyone else sees this. So our hosts all sit behind an F5 load balancer, so they don't have that direct communication with the internet. And we had run into an issue where the certificate needed for Logz.io verification just wasn't authing correctly. Something with passing through the F5 was messing that up. And so we found that FileBeat had this verification mode that defaults to true, and we needed to disable it in order to allow our traffic to flow through. I think Logstash has a similar one as well, so hopefully that saves people some time. And then the only other challenge that we really faced was really just the mindset shift that comes with moving from an on-premises deployment to a SaaS one. So with the, our users, we were able to really just log whatever we wanted, right? It was kind of like the Wild West. Anything could go into it. We didn't have a lot of, great automation in place and monitoring for, where things were coming from and how much space different apps were using. It was just kind of free for all. Whereas now with Logz.io, our teams have very specific amounts of space that they can use, and they have to stay within those constraints. And this was a challenge in the beginning, especially. Our teams would run their account out of space. They would reach out to ops asking for more space, and we would have to say, no, we don't have any more. That we can't just expand. And what this has led our team to do is to really start taking ownership of their logs and doing more thorough reviews on their own, which, as I mentioned, Logz.io thankfully has lots of tools in place that help with this. And because of that, because of these log reviews and just general, ownership that they're taking, we've seen about a 62% reduction in our overall logging volume, which is amazing to me. I did not expect to see such great gains. So it's just been really awesome to see our teams to do that. And, I'll get messaged by some, they'll say, hey, I see that my account keeps getting an email that it's hitting 95% most days. And they're like, don't worry, we're reviewing it. And I'm like, that's awesome. I'm so glad you guys are jumping in and tracking things down. And so to help encourage that ownership and that mindset shift, we've set up some dashboards in addition to everything built in that help our users and our teams identify, how their space is being used. So here's an example of one of those dashboards where the top piece is the overall volume that they have allotted, and then their usage of that. And then the bottom there is how the apps are utilizing that volume. So this was an example I'd found of a team that kept hitting that cap every day, and they got tired of the emails, and they found that this purple app was using much more volume than any others that they owned. So they deployed some logging changes and immediately got that feedback where now they're staying under, and then they continue investigating for savings. So lastly, I just wanted to kind of walk through some of the features in Logz.io that have really provided the most benefit for us. So the first being the archive and restore feature. I don't think I mentioned, but when we were on Thea, we only had about 5 to 7 days of retention. Whereas now in Logz.io, we have 7 days of retention plus 30 days of cold storage. And, that's really just been game changing for us. Being such a large company, errors that happen with our field agents or with our call centers sometimes take a while to get back to us. So now our our developers actually can find the data and troubleshoot those issues, whereas before that data would have been gone. And the next feature that I really love is the alert definitions feature. I'm sure everyone else out there in ops knows that we are all a part of way too many email chains and way too many alert threads. And it's really hard sometimes to kind of narrow down what needs to be addressed right away. Logz.io has tagging and severity settings, which makes it a lot easier to see the email come in. High severity, I know, okay, I need to look at this before I do anything else. So that's been really helpful. Not to mention, it's all UI based now, so our users can set them up on their own. Whereas in the past, all of our alerts were set up through YAML files that ops had to write. And I'm very glad to be away from YAML. And then lastly, the drop filters. As I've mentioned, a lot of Thea was Dockerized. So to add in a new log drop would require us to create a new Docker image and then deploy that image out. So again, ops intervention versus now our users can go into the UI and add in a drop and it works within a matter of seconds. So that time to change is a lot shorter too, which is really great. So with that, if you get anything from this, just please log responsibly, be good stewards of your environment. And with that, I will hand it off to Ashley Somerville, who is a senior customer success engineer at Logz.io. Thanks, Ashley.
Thanks, Nicole, and hi, everyone. My name is Ashley Somerville. I'm a customer success engineer here at Logz.io, working with Nicole on the Dish account. As Nicole described, when her team started onboarding to the Logz.io platform, they utilized a few specific features to help them cut down from the hundreds of terabytes of logs per day they had going into their internal Elk stack to just what they needed. I'll show you one of the features today called Patterns. Opening up the demo account, you'll see that there's an additional tab in the document table called Patterns. The Patterns feature uses AI clustering techniques to template your logs into smaller, more manageable pieces. You'll see here in this example, over the last 24 hours, we have just over 1 million log documents. Looking into the patterns table, you'll see that they've been templated into these smaller, more manageable pieces so we can understand what is taking up our log volume. This pattern, proxy request to services send, is using just over 16% of our volume over the last 24 hours. We can filter for this pattern, which will return us into the document table with only the logs that match this pattern being returned. Identifying that this particular log message is not of value to us, we can then apply a drop filter, which will prevent these logs from being indexed into our account. Copying the message and going into Tools, Drop Filters, I can add a new drop filter for the particular service, which is sending these messages, and filter in on the message field being equal to that value I copied from the pattern. Selecting to filter my incoming logs and applying the filter here will immediately prevent these logs from being indexed into my account. If I find that I do need these logs in the future, I can come back to this page and quickly toggle off the drop filter and the logs will begin indexing again. That's it.
Thanks, Nicole. That is a nightmare and I'm so glad it's not my problem. And to be fair, it's not yours anymore. There's a reason people take their Elk stack and ship it off to somebody else to do. So got another couple of sessions back to back. First up is going to be Logz.io's product manager, Ari Fischler. He's going to be doing a quick demo of the flexible sub accounts. And then immediately after that, we've got Oren Shem-Tov, the DevOps director at Kaltura, and Batel Bergman, who's a customer success engineer team lead at Logz.io. They're going to be doing a customer perspective session. And yeah, let's dive into that.
Thanks, and happy to see you here at ScaleUp. Hi, I'm Ari Fischler, a product manager at Logz.io. Sub-accounts is a unique functionality of Logz.io. It makes it easy for the admin account to manage multiple teams and each team's relevant log data. There are a few use cases for having separate accounts for one main account. One common use case is to have separate accounts for different environments. For example, a main account manager could define one sub-account for development, one for staging, and another for production, each of which with different log data volume caps. However, managing the log volume allocation for each of these sub-accounts is always a challenge. How should you be able to know the correct cap to put on each sub-account? Flexible log volume for sub-accounts does the optimizing for you. Based on the sub-account purpose and importance, you can reserve a certain amount of log volume for each sub-account and decide whether or not it should be capped. In many cases, a sub-account will not use all of the allocated space. With flexible volume, whatever is not used and not reserved becomes shared volume, meaning any of the other needy sub-accounts can use it. This optimizes your plan by distributing available log data across sub-accounts. Now, you can easily use all of the space in your plan without constantly tinkering with sub-accounts volume allocation. Turn it on by toggling the Use Flexible Volume button in the Manage Accounts page in the Logz.io app.
Hi guys, good afternoon. My name is Oren Shemtov and I'm Director of SRE for Kaltura Cloud TV product. In the next 15 minutes, I will explain briefly about Kaltura and our products. I will share with you our reasons for choosing Logz.io. Next, we will discuss how we have implemented our Logz.io structure and architecture. And in the end, we will see a short demo of a real-time incident investigation. So I hope you're all set. Let's begin. So Kaltura, we are an online video company with more than 500 employees, more than 1,000 customers, and more than 100 million end users. Our workload is running mostly in AWS Cloud. Our product portfolio includes video communication and collaboration tools like Video Portal, similar to organizational YouTube, video meetings and messaging systems, and industry applications for educations like virtual classrooms, for media and telecom, and for healthcare industries. But today, we will focus on our Cloud TV platform, which operates within the biggest telco operators in the world. Our Cloud TV platform is an API backend that helps our customers, telecom companies, to manage their Cloud TV user experience, from initial device registration to zapping an electronic program guide to choosing the content for watching. As you can see in this slide, our API gateway is Nginx that is responsible for caching and filtering requests. Our API layer, which runs multiple services like catalog and recording, and our data layer with SQL and non-SQL database servers, Elasticsearch, and RabbitMQ for asynchronous messaging. So why we chose Logz.io? We had no log management solution before Logz.io, and we have searched to define a unified language of logs between R&D integration and our operation team. Managing our own Elk stack requires too much effort. After all, our system generates more than 7 terabytes of logs per day. Before Logz.io, we have wasted a lot of time with troubleshooting and finding root cause of incidents. And we also have searched for a system that will allow us some APM mechanism. Our Logz.io structure. After 1 year running Logz.io in production for all our Cloud TV systems, from dev till production, this is our point of view of the architecture. We are using Okta to implement single sign-on to Logz.io as for all our Cloud TV-based systems. We will show it in 1 second. This simplifies our user management by creating only 2 Okta groups within Logz.io. We are using sub-account for each environment, which allows us better cost analysis of environment, data privacy, and even more accurate restore procedure. To overcome the quota waste using separate sub-accounts, we are using flexible volumes with max limit for non-production environments and shared quota. And we are making intensive usage of Logz.io alerts for implementing application operations and alerts as part of our monitoring stack. All our users entitled to create dashboards and visualization, but operation team also creates and shares ones, which I will demonstrate in a few minutes. But before the demo, let's go through the different settings that we have in Logz.io as I presented in this slide. Regarding users, as I've mentioned, because we are using Logz.io for each sub account, we are having only two groups, okay? One group for administrators, one group for users, for all our users in all our sub accounts. Multiple sub accounts, as you can see here, we have sub account per environment, and from development, staging, pre-prod and production environment. And for each sub account, we are using flexible volumes to make sure that our quota is not wasted. For example, our development, pre-prod and production environment have reserved volume and max volume for each account. And you can see here that we still have 90 gigabyte, which is shared between all other accounts. And for production accounts, we are defining only the minimum reservation to make sure that we have enough quota to store for 1 day. And regarding alerts, so as you can see here, for example, this is one of our root cause analysis reports that we are issuing to our customers. One of the preventive measures in this root cause analysis was to define a Logz.io alert, which is very fast and help us to identify incidents that already happened and mitigate them from happening again. So in this case, we have defined a Logz.io alert for identifying issues with scout-based password. As you can see here, okay, this was the alert. The alert was defined. It was happening in only one environment, but we have defined it to all our production sub-accounts. Each alert also includes a specific runbook for our NOC engineers, what to do, and a specific runbook with instructions of what to do in case this incident happened. And we are utilizing, or we are enhancing this mechanism to apply Logz.io alerts for each new product and technology. All of our users are entitled to create dashboards and visualizations, but operation teams also creates and shares general ones, which I will demonstrate in a few minutes in the next slide, which is our demo. In the following demo, I'm going to show a short incident that we had on October 19th when 4:12 in the afternoon and 4:15 Israel time. This was a short incident with no real effect on the customers. During this demo, we will see the alerts came in Slack. I will show how operations did the troubleshoot by checking our Grafana, then go to the Logz.io dashboard, and then after only 10 minutes, report back with the root cause in Slack. So let's start with this demo analysis. First of all, I will show you the Slack alerts which started this incident. So the incident started, as I said, 4:13, October 19th, which one of our biggest customers faced an issue within the production system, which enabled our protection mechanism. We call it Iron Shield in the system. each incident like this needs to be investigated. So first of all, after 1 minute, our NOC engineer tested the playback and saw that it's all fine. And after 15 minutes, this alert was closed. This means that there was no real effect on the system, but we still needed to understand what happened. So the first thing that we did is went to our Grafana dashboard for these specific customers, and we searched for something in the root cause. We saw that there was a spike in the CPU of the API servers, but we saw also that our backend was not affected, or our data layer was not the root cause. As you can see here, Couchbase, Elastic, and database didn't cause this issue. Okay, but there was some load that affected the backend. So the next thing, we went to Logz.io to try and understand what happened. First of all, we have search. We'll go to this specific account. As you can see here, we saw that there was a spike in the calls, okay, at exactly 4:12 and 45 seconds. The next thing, we have tried to understand who caused this issue and why it was caused. So we used our Nginx dashboard. This is our SRE dashboard with a lot of information about the request, the cache method of this request, and the root cause per and the response time, and it includes a lot of data also about the status of the status errors of those requests. Since this data is restored, we don't have all the indexes inside, but we have the most important data. First of all, we went and we saw the spike in the calls. Okay, as you can see here. Okay, then the next thing that we saw that in this time we had a decrease in the cache. Okay, so this means that most of the requests were not served from our Nginx, from our cache layer, but from the backend, which caused this load. So next thing, what I will do is I'm going to filter out the hit request from Nginx, leaving only the non-cached requests. After filtering out, I was able to see that the request that caused the most load on the system was a get asset bookmark, where we used to get around 1,400 requests per second, when we usually used to get around 200. So the system was loaded around 700% more than what is required, and this was only a short spike which caused this issue. Going back to Slack, after 10 minutes, I was able to find the root cause of the load, report back to support, and to support team, and close this incident. This is it. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Oren, for that session. As somebody who likes monkeying around and building microservices, I really hadn't thought about how to do RCAs and stuff like that. So it's, yeah, something I kind of probably should take more notice of that for. So thank you. So next up, we have, once again, it's Ari. Sorry, we've run out of PMs, but he's going to be giving a quick demo on our improved alerts. And after that, we have another customer perspective session, and it's going to be Jujahar Singh, who's Global DevSecOps Practice Lead at The Economist. He's a local Brummie, so I've got to give my love for that. And yeah, let's go watch Jujahar.
Great to be here at ScaleUp and go through another Logz.io nice feature. Hi, I'm Ari Fischler, a product manager at Logz.io. At Logz.io, we put a lot of effort making ELK usable and scalable in order to take the load of maintenance away from our users. We always knew that alerts are required to help our customers achieve full monitoring and troubleshooting abilities because it looks at the trends and then lets users know when a problem occurs or when the business is not performing as expected. That is why we developed an alerting mechanism that sits on top of the ELK stack. It was important to us that we have a seamless integration with the user interface as part of the Kibana UI to provide an end-to-end solution. Alerts has been a game changer, and it is one of our most popular features, which is why we're constantly making them more flexible and easier to use. Here are the latest additions we introduced to alerts. Create your alert directly from the Kibana Discover search box. This is a very convenient way to set an alert right after troubleshooting a potential incident. You can also set a new alert from scratch. Alerts can be created using any Kibana query. More than that, you can apply aggregations on the query to get a more direct notification on the root cause of an incident. To duplicate an existing alert, just use the menu button from the alert list. You can easily amend the copied alert to a new one with small changes. Modify your alerts easily by editing the query and directly see the result in a new tab opened from the Preview in Kibana button. Select an endpoint or create a new one directly from your alert screen. Logz.io supports many destinations, including email, Slack, Ops.Genie, PagerDuty, and any custom destination using webhooks. Once set, configure the alert notification by selecting custom fields and deciding on the appropriate format. You have maximum control on the way you receive your notification and the way they look. To top these goodies, we are taking alerts to the next level by adding alerts correlations. This will combine two queries to a single alert, notifying on joint events that happened in sequence, helping to ensure notification accuracy for critical events. This was a short overview of Logz.io alerts. Hope you enjoyed. See you on next sessions.
Hi there. Welcome to ScaleUp. My name is Jajar, and I wanted to give this short talk on framework for success, how to get logging done properly and how to get the max out of Logz.io. So here's the agenda today. I'll give a quick spiel about myself. And I want to talk about the challenges that you are currently facing, that you will face if adopting Logz.io. And then I'll give you an idea about some of the tools that you need. And these tools I've open sourced. And hopefully you can take these tools, use them in your own organization, and really push the needle forward and mature your capability, your logging capability. Right. So I'm currently DevSecOps practice lead at The Economist, which is a lovely place to be. I really believe in The Economist. It's a fantastic organization. I really believe in the product as well. Just pushing, we're fighting against ignorance, right, and trying to make the world a better place through knowledge. Previous to this, I was a cloud evangelist at John Lewis, which is a lovely job. John Lewis, if you're not familiar with it, in the UK is a £14 billion a year retailer, high-end retailer. And when I started, they had zero cloud, and when I left, they were deploying multiple times a day on Kubernetes. So that was a lovely, privileged job. I could describe myself as a 2/3 stack engineer. I'm a developer at heart. I'll take you from the server all the way up to the JSON. Very bad at front end. So yeah, I've yet to meet a proper full stack engineer. I think everyone can do 2/3, but that's me. I sit very much in this back end space. I'm celebrating 10 years of AWS this year and 4 years of Google Cloud. You can find me JajarS13 on most things. So Stack Overflow, GitHub, that kind of thing. Right. So let me talk about the challenges that you face or you will face if you're not already on Logz.io or a competing platform. But if you don't already have a good log platform and you're not logging your data, these are some of the challenges you're going to face into, and then we'll talk about the solutions. The biggest challenge you're going to face is getting engineers to actually use the platform, especially if you've got a lot of engineers or a very big team. What you might end up with, different teams are using different platforms for different things, right? And whilst I'm actually against Nitrogen having one tool for everyone, because each tool, solves different use cases. With logging, especially, being able to look east to west, being able to traverse horizontally is super useful. So if you've got a upstream service that your product, your particular team depends on, being able to then inspect and see any errors coming from their part of the stack becomes super useful. So logging, a log platform is actually an observability platforms are generally one of the things where I say we should standardize and we should pick one platform and try and get everyone into it and shut down all the other platforms. That horizontal traversal will give you a huge value and huge insight to what's going on. The other challenge you're going to face is, all your disparate systems, right? Your .NET, your PHP applications, your Go applications, your Lambdas, your containers, your old school VMs. Maybe if you've got on-prem, getting that in as well. All the different languages, all the different operating systems. Like, how do you get that across in a consistent manner, in a shareable manner, in a reusable manner, right? That's quite challenging. The other one, so standardizing your log structure. How can you make your logs better, basically, so they add more value rather than just dump a string and then have to do loads of post process on it? Can you get everyone to adopt a strategy and make the logging have more value, have more metadata that gives you more insight into, so it's just this event, but where did this event come from? What triggered this event? Is this linked to anything else? Having that extra metadata will really, take your logging to another level. And getting your applications to log properly is surprisingly hard. So again, engineer creates an application, launches it to production. They've ticked their ticket off in Jira or Clubhouse, and that's it. We're done, right? Then there's the whole running it in production, and an error happens. But there's nothing in Logz.io. There's just error. You need to instrument your your application properly. Make sure that if there's this type of exception, make sure I log that. If there's this case that happens, this particular case, make sure that's logged specifically. Are you using, the I can't remember the name of the standard, but are you using info, alert, fatal, error? Are you using the log standards properly? So actually instrumenting your code, making sure you're using that properly. So we'll talk about how you solve that. And then, identifying gaps in coverage. We call it the Rumsfeld index. So this is my CISO came out with this, and if you're familiar with Donald Rumsfeld, that's knowing let's see if we can get this right, knowing the known knowns, the known unknowns, but the unknown unknowns, right? So what parts of your estate that you thought you had coverage on, actually, that turns out there's no coverage there, right? So first thing I'd recommend that you do is capability modeling. So I'll go into this, but what we're trying to do is model our current logging capability and our current logging maturity. I've created this tool, which has been inspired by Accelerate, if those of you are familiar with that DevOps book. And it's a capability modeling, and I've open sourced it. It's MIT licensed, so I encourage you to fork this and use it for your own organization. Contribute, maybe do a pull request back, make it better. But what you're doing is going around your teams, and here are the sort of DevOps principles, DevSecOps principles. So observability, development practices, CI/CD, the security, availability, durability. How good are your backups, right? Essentially, and culture. So these are all the principles fall under the remit of DevSecOps. And how good are you at this? So we have 4 levels. We have level 1, we have level 2, level 3, and level 4. Right. So underneath this, I'll go into this a bit deeper, let me make the font a little bit bigger, is you have here, so you have all the DevSecOps principles, and then you have descriptions for level 1, descriptions for level 2, level 4. Level 1 is essentially lift and shift, right? So you've deployed your application in AWS, and it's whatever CloudWatch gives you, right? There's no enhanced logging or deeper logging than that. All the way to level 4, which is like the Netflixes of this world, right? their observability is so good as if a fly goes past one of their servers, they'll tell you when it was and what gender it was. Right? So level 4 maturity, really, in my opinion, to have a good functioning organization, you need to be at least level 3, right? And that's when you're nice and comfortable. And then the realm of level 4 is like the innovators of this world. So I was speaking to someone from Toyota earlier. They're starting out with their connected car initiative, and they're kind of level 1, right? They're pretty early in their journey. So Toyota be over here, level 1, and then Tesla are over here in level 4. Right? So how do you get Toyota from level 1 to level 4? You follow this observability model. So yeah, level 1, whatever you get out of the box, right? Whatever you get for free. Level 2, you have a little bit of an APM, right? Application performance monitoring, and I'll dive into that a little bit later. And level 3 is comprehensive logging. You have that in place, and you have all your logs going into log aggregation platform. And level 4 is things like open tracing, where you can trace application things across east and west, right? So take this tool, and then I'll just show you. Just if you click on the link, it'll take you to GitHub, and there's I'll just make the font a bit bigger. All you need to do is fork this repo and then edit this data.json file, and you can modify the questions, right? Because your set of challenges might be different to ours, and then you can assign team scores. So go around each one of your product teams, assigning them a score. So your website team might be really mature. You might give them 80%, 0.8, and your let's just say your newsletters team, they've got a long way to go, so they're more 0.1%. So go through and map each one of your teams, and you can have up to 15 teams. After that, I run out of colors. So if you can fix that JavaScript issue, please submit a pull request, right? Rate them there, and then you'll end up with and by the way, I just use GitHub pages to publish this. So if you fork it, you can then just deploy your own at your own URL using GitHub pages. So it's super easy to get started with this and customize it. It's MIT license, so yeah, fill your boots. You can pretty much do what you want. I'm just not liable. So once you have this published and you have your teams rated, and you can say, okay, observability, team 2 is struggling a bit, right? They're sort of they're in level 1 territory. Team 2 are okay, they're moving, and they're level 2. And then this team here is doing really well. We don't need to worry about them. And now, once you have all your teams and your products mapped, you know where to focus your energies, right? So actually we're going to target these lower teams here and put our energy here. And I'll talk about the enablement model, and where to focus your energies and target those, right? So using this tool, capability modeling tool, you can map where you are on your logging and observability journey. Okay. Right. So observability, just diving into that specifically. It's a very broad term, but it's monitoring things in real time, being able to look inside your system in any point inside your system and see things as they flow through, see where the issues are and pick them up. Now, the more comprehensive your cover, the quicker you'll pick up things, issues, but also look for performance optimizations and opportunities, transactions. So for this, and I've got another tool for this as well. There's another open source one. Use this tool here. It's not really a tool. It's just a table, right? Observability strategy, right? So what you want to do is you want to think about your application is running. You want to be able to instrument and observe what I call the metal layer. So your cloud layer. What's going on with the servers underneath? What's going on with the disk? What's going on with the CPU? Is there, like in AWS, my instance has gone dodgy? So, right, most people do this very well. So let's start from here, right? Website. So they stick pingdom on their website, right? Uptime, downtime, and that's it. They think that's observability done. We can see when our website is up and website is down. Slightly more advanced when our website is slightly slow in different regions of the world. Great. But if there's an issue, you just know, well, it's up or it's down. You don't know where that is. And then you have to start lifting the floorboards and look at all the systems and work out where the issue is. Whereas if you've got observability of every part of your system, you can find that issue much quicker, or even see the issue before it manifests and bubbles up to the website layer. You might be able to get it ahead of time. So, what observability do you have on your Metal? Do you have just the basic CloudWatch, or do you have some maybe New Relic instrumentation, Cloud Health, some other tools in that area that, for instance, normally out of the box with AWS, you don't get RAM usage, and you have to turn on install an agent, a CloudWatch agent, and turn on and give it the right permissions. Then all of a sudden you get RAM usage, especially if you're using something like Java or .NET, which is very RAM sensitive. You wouldn't see that issue. The out of memory killer would come in and create all sorts of weird behavior. But all of a sudden, if you just put a bit of energy in, now you can see the RAM usage. Now, when there's some downtime, something weird happens. Oh, you notice that your RAM's at 90%. So therefore you can solve that problem. Otherwise, you're just going to be digging around for days, right? Server-side code. So this is looking at APM primarily. So this is looking at which database, which functions are called, which pages are the most popular, which are the most expensive functions, which are the most expensive database queries. Are there issues there? When I did this release, all of a sudden everything slowed down because of a complex query or something. And then in this space, you've got New Relic, you've got AWS X-Ray, you've got Logz.io because they've got distributed tracing now, Jaeger and Zipkin, which is great. So now you can cover east to west. So if you've got a service here, a website here that calls on this API, you can see all the connections that are going on between and how the data was flowing, went from this service to this service to this service out into the final product. And then API monitoring. So again, we've got, most people have pingdom, right? They watch the endpoint, but can you monitor the API that feeds that website? So RunScope is a great tool in this space. And they'll take your unit tests, I can't remember the name of the tool, Postman tests, and they'll run them continuously for you. And then website monitoring. So are your pages up, down? Great. But Logz.io again can help here, and you can build some synthetics and some dashboards, transactions, like how many sales have I made this month? Where are the sales coming from? How many abandoned baskets do I have? And then Logz.io, really help there. And then again, in the security space, all the way up to security, you've got Logz.io help there with the CM product that they have. So, and then I go in here and I say which teams are responsible for delivering this. And then your maturity, again, back to the capability model, some more questions around that. And you can rank your current maturity. This is just an HTML table. So again, when you fork the repo, you'll get a copy of this too. So use this tool as an education tool and make sure that you've got coverage on every part of your stack. So it's not just you see an error here, manifest here. You can preempt that error by seeing the error further down, seeing the performance bottlenecks further down. Right. The other big thing, the challenge is communication. So we use this boring business change management thing, and it's called ADCAR. And essentially you're going through whenever there's a change, and so this is using the world of business change, but just think of it as an engineering change, which is part of the business. You need to push for awareness. You need to ensure that there's desire for the change. This is a change the engineers want. So you need to do a bit of a sales piece, right? So, oh God, not another logging tool, not another tool we have to implement. We've got this feature to deliver. You need to say, oh, these are the advantages, communicate the advantage. Oh, look, you'll now be able to do this, right? So build a bit of a sales, internal selling piece. Knowledge of how to change, and this is, where your technical account manager. So I've had Patel on the call. She'll help with that, how to change. And then the ability to demonstrate. So maybe give some examples and some pseudocode or some real code examples. So engineers will look at it straight away and think, oh, okay, it's not a massive mammoth project. Oh, this is relatively simple. And then the reinforcement bit, which I'll show you how we did, is through the GitHub pull request flow, engineers got involved in the conversation, and then they build further awareness, and it just ripples and you get a virtuous circle. So this is really important, because if you just say, okay, now you're doing Splunk is gone, Sumo Logic is gone, now you're doing Logz.io, it won't be as effective as if you let everyone know up front, right? And you engage in this model. So we used Uber's model. So I've got the link here. It'll be shared later. A blog post, fantastic blog post. And we adopted this. And what we have is we use RFCs, and we use GitHub as our platform for RFCs. So request for comments, right? So an engineering change is coming, and then one of us will say, okay, we're going to do this engineering change. And there's templates for this as well. And you say, this is the change we're doing, and this is why we're doing it, the motivation. High level explanation. So for non-technical people, you have a high level explanation, then you have a technical level one. And then you talk about the pros and cons of this approach. Then what will happen is you then submit that as a PR for everyone. You give people a couple of weeks and you say, here's a pull request. Everyone please weigh in. And then everyone will start to, Balbir said this. And then Dan said, oh, well, what about this? This isn't quite right. Ivan said, forcing key rotation, probably not right. Sam said this, and then Dom weighed in and said this. Do we need to worry about this? Do we need to worry about that? This process, which developers are used to doing, this is how they work day in, day out. If you use the same process, leverage that same process, you've got your AdCom model sorted. You don't have to pay a consultant loads of money to try and build this for you. It's all built into GitHub. This is how engineers work. So use the same process. And you can see, we've had 25 individual comments on this. We've had, so it's just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, about 10 odd engineers involved. And then finally, after a certain point, you say, okay, RFC is done. Boom, and this is how we're doing logging, and everyone's already aware. They're already expecting the change to come, and they anticipate and they desire it. So build that desire, do a bit of a sales piece, right? So that's that there. And final piece, enablement team. So if you really want to guarantee success, you will need, unless you've got a very small team, you will need an enabling team, and that can just be, and it's from Team Topology. So if you haven't read this book, great book. It can either be a dedicated set of engineers or just engineering time from volunteers for a certain period of time. But what you want to do is they jump into the product teams to enable them to get Logz.io. So the website team haven't got time to understand this and get involved and get all the knowledge. You get your superstar person, you get her engineer, and she jumps in, and then she submits pull requests to actually get the data into Logz.io. So what we did, we were using a lot of Elastic Beanstalk at the time. So we had to write horrible Elastic Beanstalk extensions to get that in. And then how do you get Lambda logs in, right? And so we had to write the Lambda shipper for that. So get it all into CloudWatch first, then ship it into Logz.io. So solving those technical challenges of actually how to ship into Logz.io. And we did things like store the Logz.io key in Secrets Manager within AWS for the different environments, and all of that solved by this team, right? Then they jump in and they pair with the product team on putting better instrumentation. So we talked about it earlier. Are you logging that a transaction has happened or a transaction has failed, or are you just letting your application error out and then there's no further detail? So actually work with the team, make sure that you're using that should be an info, that should be a debug, that should be an alert. Make sure they're doing the wrong types and sending in the extra metadata that you'll need. And then mob programming has been very successful here at The Economist. So it's like pair programming on steroids, but then we'll mob with the whole team or a larger part of the team to then in Logz.io create the dashboards, so the sales dashboard, and work with them and show them how to do that. And again, our technical account manager has been super helpful with getting us going on that. Right. So in summary, for success, you'll need to model your capability. So where are you now? Where's your current maturity? Are you level 1, level 2, level 3, level 4? So do that first. So you know the extent, where the gaps are, the gap analysis, right? Then observability strategy, make sure everyone understands where Logz.io can add value and get them to think about how they're going to use it, where they're going to use it. And then your communication strategy, make sure you communicate, make sure you do that sales piece, effective communication, use the tools that engineers love. Don't stick it in Confluence where no one is ever going to read it. Jump in, get into the trenches, write your pull requests, and get everyone involved. And then finally, the enablement team model. You'll need, depending on the size of your organization, you'll need 2-3 engineers just jumping in and getting that solved. So whether that's a dedicated team or just time sliced out of their week to help with that. Great. Thank you very much. You can get me jajarsingh at economist.com or on Twitter, jajaris13. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Jujahar. If you hadn't been keeping an eye on the chat, don't forget, during his session, he gave a whole bunch of links and they've been dropped into the chat for you. So go have a look for the information about his capability model. Okay. Right. We do have one last chance at a prize. And you're going to have to be very quick to get there, answer it before everything else carries on. So the question is, in Jujahar's presentation, where did he work before he joined The Economist? He did say. So go on, be quick, and then come back and rejoin the next sessions. Next up is going to be Ari again. I'm sorry, we're really making him work for it. So Logz.io's very own product manager, Ari Fischler, is going to be doing a quick demo of the new distributed tracing. So let's go watch.
Hi, I'm Ari Fischler, a product manager at Logz.io. I'd like to introduce you to our new distributed tracing solution based on Jaeger, an open source project developed originally by Uber and now part of the CNCF. With this launch, you can now use Logz.io to monitor your logs, metrics, and traces together with the best open source tools. Jaeger is a quickly growing tracing tool used by engineers to identify and pinpoint issues in microservice architectures. Instead of monitoring events or entities in isolation, distributed tracing allows a transaction to be tagged and followed, creating a trace, showing the path of the distributed transaction across the subcomponents required for it to execute. Logz.io distributed tracing solution provides Jaeger as a service, so engineers can use the popular and purpose-built open source for tracing without having to manage and scale it themselves. Here we see a few traces in the Jaeger UI. Logz.io distributed tracing can ingest data using many instrumentation types, from Open Tracing, Open Census, and the emerging Open Telemetry. To investigate one of these front-end requests, let's click on a trace. This brings us to the timeline view, which breaks down the trace into spans so we can easily visualize how the request was fulfilled by various microservices. By switching to the trace graph, we get a clear view of the path that spans take throughout the system and the way services interact. Let's go back to the timeline view to investigate our trace. Right away, we can see this call to Redis was timing out, which stands out as a problem. Let's explore this Redis timeout further with our built-in feature to correlate traces and logs. This allows you to investigate logs related to a trace within Kibana. Here is the Redis timeout. Let's create an alert to stay notified if it happens again. To do this, we can add a quick filter to pull up the Redis timeout and click on Create Alert, which automatically carries the query into the alert definition. From here, I can set a trigger condition and choose a notification endpoint. That's a quick look at Logz.io distributed tracing. Feel free to get in touch with us if you're interested in learning more.
Thank you so much for spending the time with us. It's been a long time, but we've had a lot of information and hopefully you've enjoyed yourself. And if you need to rewatch any of this, we do have the recordings available on demand here. We're also going to be sending out an email recap, so keep an eye on your inbox for that so you can get all of it. And I'm allowed now to talk a little bit about what we've got on here from the developer relations team. So first up, my colleagues and I run the Open Observability podcast and stream. So if you want to find out anything about that, go to openobservability.io. It's all about the open source side of life, so you can find out, well, about everything, not just Logz.io. And we're also involved, due to the wonderfulness of our CTO, Jonah, in the Open Telemetry program. So that's going to be quite useful, because immediately after this, we're going to be hosting an AMA with our CTO, Jonah Coel. So if you want to go and have a chat with him, well, we're going to drop the link. So click the link. If you haven't registered already, sign up and go ask him anything you'd like about Logz.io, about the technology, about the projects and programs we're involved with. And if you want to come back and see us again later, we're also going to be at AWS reInvent in about a few weeks. So there's only a little bit more to wait before you have to see some more wonderful Logz.io. So once again, thanks very much, and we'll see you soon.